The front hall of the Xu mansion. A family of 4 is eating. Xu Lingyue. I still didn't wait for my eldest brother to eat together today. Strange to him. Asked with his head down. The eldest brother has not been home on time for dinner for many days. Xiao doubting said while eating haze. I'll have some leftovers for the cauldron. The aunt glanced at the second uncle. In a few days, it's not time for the month. Second Uncle Xu bowed his head to eat. He's actually overdrawn the month of the month. The end of the year is approaching. Socializing and gift-giving among colleagues. It's all white-silver. Second Uncle Xu thought to himself. Anyway, Ning Yin didn't marry a daughter-in-law. Let's borrow his money to deal with it first. Annie sighed. At the end of the year, I had to make clothes for the monkeys. There is not enough silver again. Before going to Yunlu Academy last month, the family also has savings of dozens of taels of silver. As soon as I came back, it was all empty. The aunt was about to tear her hands on the spot. The second uncle said that he was not out to fool around. It was Su Dalong and Su Erlang who vouched for their personalities. The money is used to run relationships and get things done. It's not fooling around. Although Su Dalong is a disgusting person, but the character is stubborn. Never lie. Su Erlang is a scholar. From small to large, one bored at a glance. He is a sensible child. They won't lie to me. Only then did my aunt believe it. Annie glanced at him and wanted to buy a cloud brocade. Su Pingji sprayed instantly. Yunjin is a very precious cloth. 1 foot and 1 tael of silver. Annie prays beautifully. After Erlang Chunwei. If you can go to high school, the identity is different. You can't wear the same robe you used to wear. No matter how precious it is, it can't hold up the field. Ling Yu is old enough to get married. It's time for the dresses in the cupboard to be refurbished. When second Uncle Xu had no choice but to talk about the tax and silver case. We've all emptied our families. For the first month, I asked my colleagues to borrow rice noodles. Wait for next year. I will buy it by all means next year. At this time, the scolding voice of the porter Lao Zhang came. Be careful. Be careful. Don't touch the wall. If it's dirty, the old man won't cut you to death. Second Uncle Xu was in a bad mood. He looked at it with a frown. I saw people in the house holding batches of silk. Under the command of the porter Lao Zhang, he came in cautiously. Andy's eyes widened. Looked at it in disbelief. Batches of glamorous jokes moved in. Su Lingyue subconsciously exclaimed, "It's so beautiful." Only little doubting is loyal to food. The little face is buried in the bowl. The cheeks are bulging one by one. Second Uncle Xu asked blankly, where did these come from? The porter Lao Zhang replied that De Lang brought it back. He said that His Majesty gave it to him. After second Uncle Xu heard this, the first reaction was mourning. Press the porter. Lao Zhang said happily outside the door. His Majesty rewarded him with a total of 500 pieces of silk. Click. The chopsticks in my aunt's hand fell on the table. 500 horses. An ant's heart thumped wildly. There's a wide variety of these silk weaves. There is silk brocade yarn and so on. Fine workmanship. The texture is exquisite. My aunt didn't go to the silk shop. The eyes are very vicious. Any silk fabric here. It's all more expensive than the more expensive silk sold in the shops. I don't know how much better. And such an expensive and exquisite material turned out to be 500 horses. Annie felt. I was stunned by the sudden happiness. Second Uncle Xu couldn't sit still. Rub to your feet. Strode out. I'm going to help. Xu Qian'an stood by the carriage. Is discussing with Nicholas Song to resolve the Sambo case. I went to the workshop to play. Xu Qian'an said in an expectant tone. There are 24 Oirins in the teaching division. I've only slept with Fuka. I'll visit them one by one another day. Nicholas Song stared at him with strange eyes. Aren't you on good terms with Fuxiang? What you should do now is to redeem him. Xu Qian also stared at him with strange eyes. I can't figure out why the ancients always liked to use the bus for private use. Xu Qian saw second uncle Su come out to help. Hurriedly shouted the second uncle. Don't move that. Wait for the second uncle to come over. Xu Qian dragged a small box of 60 pounds and threw it over. You move this. Second uncle Su just wanted to go out. As a result, Xu Qian opened the box. A flash of golden light blinded his dog's eyes. Su Lingyue's small hand pressed on a piece of silk. Feel the touch of silky, thin lubrication. The girl's heart was pounding. The aunt who was the mother slapped May away. Say goodbye to getting dirty. The simple-minded Su Lingyue said leisurely. What is my mother happy about? These things were given by His Majesty to the eldest brother. It's not your thing, Annie said with a stiff smile. I'm still pretty good to Delang. Yes, he didn't have the confidence to say this. Su Lingyue nodded, which is good. Big brother is yours to raise. Lose money. Su Lingyue, who was poked by her aunt's finger, stumbled. You dead girl. At this time, the mother and daughter saw second Uncle Su. Despondent, he came in with a suitcase. The aunt asked suspiciously, what was in the master's hand? Second Uncle Su opened the box without hesitation. Cover it again in an instant. Then he looked at his wife and asked if she was blind. Annie nodded, dumbly blind. Xu Qian is about to usher in the highlight moment of his life. He sat down on a stool. Zaba paused his mouth and said that his throat was so dry. I didn't have a good cup of tea for a day when I was tired. The aunt looked at the face of gold and silk. Immediately, there was a 360-degree change in attitude. You sit at the feast. Auntie will soak you. Xu Qian took a sip of the tea handed over by his aunt. Said milk no. The aunt immediately agreed, and some of them did. Annie has the freshest milk here. Nothing scheming. Su Lingyue couldn't stand it anymore. Xu Qian continued to make inches. Suddenly, I wanted to eat steamed eggs. Annie is in a particularly good mood at the moment. I don't care about Xu Qian being presumptuous in front of him. Annie, I'll let the kitchen do it for you. Yes. Qian still didn't consciously hum Annie. That's insincere. I want to eat eggs made by my aunt. Annie bit her lip. Chang Yin smiled and said with a smile, Annie will make you steamed eggs. Came up, Xu Qian said while eating. There were a lot of dirty clothes thrown in the yard next door. I'm an unlucky guy who doesn't have a father or a mother. I had to wash it myself. Annie bit her silver teeth. Freeze on what you're saying. Giving birth to an aunt is your own. Auntie is happy. Xu Qian felt that his thoughts reached the beads of his body at this moment. The obsession squeezed in my heart finally dissipated. Only the 4 words of raising eyebrows and exhaling were left. At this time, Xu Qian proposed the second uncle. Otherwise, we'll sell the house. Go to the inner city and buy a big house. After hearing this, the beautiful aunt of the wind and rain heard this. His eyes lit up. That's what he's always dreamed of. A big mansion in the inner city. Second Uncle Su was silent when he heard this. At this time, he glanced at the furnishings in the hall. Suddenly, there was some embarrassment that this was an ancestral home. Whoever says it sells it, sells it. Your father and I grew up in this house. Xu Qian raised his glass and took a sip of wine. Indifferently said that if you don't sell it, you won't sell it. 8,000 taels of silver. Enough to buy a more spacious house in the inner city. After saying that, he put down his glass. Suddenly, said the second uncle, I'm not out there with another woman's illegitimate birth. Poof! Second Uncle Su's sip of wine was all sprayed on Xiao Doubting's face. He meant to spray it on the ground, but the young girl is too small. It squirted right into his brain and face. Xiao Doubting was stunned. I don't know what I've done wrong. But he was strong enough not to cry. Tongue licked the liquor off his face. It doesn't feel good. That's when I started crying. Second Uncle Su blocked his ears. Glared at the nephew, who couldn't speak. What nonsense are you talking about? Xu Qian, who was proficient in the psychology of expressions. Make a judgment right away. people are most defenseless. The actions made subconsciously are the most in line with the heart. The second uncle's expression was not weak and calm. The aunt's face was not suspicious or stunned. Xu Qian took the lead in ruling it out. The option of being the illegitimate son of the second uncle. It was not for nothing that he would think so. When I was young, the second uncle's colleagues came to visit and be guests at home. We'll point to Xu Qian and say that this is your son. Or point to Su Erlang and say that your girl is so beautiful. What does this mean? It means that Xu Qian and Su Ersha's facial features are very similar. From a genetic point of view, these two are related by blood. Su's wife shrugged and said, just kidding. I've never met my biological parents. Looks so similar to the second uncle. By the way, has my aunt seen my mother? Auntie Ying Dao has naturally seen it. When your mother was pregnant with you. I've been taking care of her for a while. Your mother is gentle. It's not like you're talking about it here. The aunt hurriedly paused. I almost habitually scolded my nephew. Xu Qian looked at the second uncle. What about your brother? Second Uncle Su was stunned for a moment before he reacted. I don't have a good heir. That's your son. He responded slightly. Your grandparents died early. My brothers and I grew up living together. Your dad is more talented than me. It's a pity that life is too thin. Died in the Battle of Shanhaiguan. Xu Qian didn't ask anything else. He quickly solved the problem of food and clothing. 500 horses of silk were left in the main house. He was holding a chest full of gold ingots. Back to the courtyard. Gold is not safe to keep at home. In the afternoon, so many colleagues in the yamen witnessed the watchman. In case of malicious intent to steal from the door. On the contrary, it will affect the aunt and sister-in-law. Wei Yuan said, during this time, we'll send a watchman, covertly protect and monitor the vicinity of Su's mansion. Prevent the Taoist priests of the emperor from seeking revenge. This can also deter those who are trying to do wrong. But he still chose to put the box into the emperor Uncle Shard. Uncle and aunt. Auntie's room. After bathing. Fragrant. The aunt sat on the edge of the bed. Wipe your jet black hair with a sweat towel. Second Uncle Su sat cross-legged on the small couch not far away. Tuna practiced. The aunt rolled her eyes seductively. Practice that practice every day. I haven't seen you practice flowers. Second Uncle Su exhaled a long breath. Although Tuna was in good spirits, but there was a deep gloom in the depths of his eyes. She had already reached the peak of her chi cultivation realm. No matter how you practice, the gas engine will not be strengthened either. The door to the nerves was closed to her. Annie straightened her full chest. Stretch your waist. Master, you said that if you break through to the next realm, is it possible to get promoted? Su Ping sighed. It's natural. The aunt complained. Su Ningyan's bastard boy can make him proud. If the old lady hadn't done it for the silk satin and the house maidens of the inner city, I can't bear him. Squirt him with bloody blood. Talking and talking. He sighed, but there was a smile of relief on his face. Unconsciously, the little rabbit was bleeding. I want to take him from you, master. He's the same size as a kitten. There was a knock on the door. Xu Qian's voice came from the door, and the second uncle. There's something I forgot to tell you. The aunt was shocked. Hurriedly shrunk into the quilt. Su Pingji got up and went to the study. Xu Qian said no. Second uncle, you come out of the door, say a few words, and leave. The aunt hid behind the edge of the bed with the quilt and eavesdropped. The uncle and nephew said a few words in detail, and the husband returned. The door slammed shut. Annie poked her head out of the quilt. What did he say when he stared at Su Pingji? Did he secretly give you private money? But suddenly he was stunned. I saw my husband's slightly reddened eyes. And moist eyes. Su Pingji closed his eyes. Whispered, I finally waited for hope. The hope of the god of love. The aunt looked at it blankly at first. Outside the door. Then he pursed his red lips. He suddenly seemed to understand. It was the gold-devouring beast in his mouth. Hope for her husband. When Xu Qian'an returned to the small courtyard, the spirit seemed to be touched. He stood in the doorway and paused for a few seconds. Only then did he gently push the door and enter. He walked over to the table, as usual. Light the candles. On the bed sat an old Taoist priest with gray hair. He has deep facial features. The eyebrows are peaceful. Xu Qian'an greeted you with a smile. Golden Lotus Road is a long, dry hand. I came, Xu Qian'an said in a deep voice. You shouldn't have come. The Golden Lotus Dao is one long and one worse. What does this mean? Didn't we make an appointment for a secret meeting today? Xu Qian'an was a little deflated. Sure enough, no one in ancient times understood this stock. Do you want to write Gulong's novel when you go back? Xu Qian'an shrugged. I was joking with the Taoist. The Golden Lotus Daoist didn't care when he heard this. It's a person after all. It's a bit quirky. The members of the Heaven and Earth Society have strong personalities. How is Sambo's case investigated? Xu Qian'an groaned. The case is very complicated. There are too many forces involved. I've looked it up to now. The clues are numerous and messy. To be honest, I've been a police officer for so many years. I've never had such a tricky problem. He mentally added, we generally rely on surveillance. Xu Qian'an will collect the clues. In his own speculation, to tell the Golden Lotus Daoist completely. Joined the Heaven and Earth Society so far. He and Daoist Jin Lian had reached a preliminary trust. I think the other party is a good candidate to be an ally. Moreover, the Sambo case has no interest in the Golden Lotus Daoist. If he fled to the capital for refuge, it was only a superficial reason. In fact, it is to pave the way for the Sambo case. He was also the one who killed the county order. That's a real bomb. Xu Qian'an was actually already furious in his heart. Now everyone looks like a bad person. Look at everyone like old silver coins. Daoist Jin Lian frowned and asked, you suspect that King Jinbei is the mastermind behind the scenes. He and the demons of the north. The clan and the witch god cult in the northeast made an agreement. Attempt to usurp the throne. So blow up Sampo. Unleash the first generation of traitors. Xu Qian'an asked rhetorically, what do you think? Daoist Jin Lian glanced at Xu Qian'an and asked himself. He sighed slowly. All of this seems reasonable at first glance. But whether it's the first generation of Suga Masayoshi or King Jinbei, you don't have any hard evidence. The king of Jinbei guards the border all year round. Poor Dao didn't know much about him. You have so rashly judged him to be wrong. Somewhat arbitrary. Moreover, the king of Jinbei is 3 concubines and 5 husbands. It may not be impossible to impact the second concubine in the future. Whether he is willing to be the emperor or not is another matter. Of course, since ancient times, the right is moving. If poor Dao said that he would not rebel, one division is a monopoly. Xu Qian'an has his own opinions. There is no conflict between impacting the second grade and being an emperor. That's my assumption. It has not yet been verified. Wait until I gather the evidence. It is clear whether the king of Jinbei is behind the scenes. It's just a Taoist chief. I can't check it anymore. Xu Qian'an sighed. Emperor Yuan Jing ordered me to take charge of the case. But King Jinbei is also a prince. And he is also a prince with a heavy army. I can't just look into his mansion. Si Tianjin's old trader pretended to be sick. I can't care either. Lu Ji asked him. It's very difficult. The Golden Lotus Dao chief narrowed his eyes slightly at Emperor Yuan Jing. Then, he looked at Xu Qian'an with an inexplicable meaning. Many years. I didn't hear the imperial court in Quan dare to call him that. Oh, I seem to have overlooked something. Xu Qian'an asked subconsciously. What was overlooked? The old Taoist chief commented that the donor had a backbone in the back of his head. Xu Qian'an immediately retorted in his heart, I didn't. You don't wrong me with nonsense. He slapped his heart. Solemnly said, I am loyal to your majesty. The Golden Lotus Daoist will not debunk it. Just gave him a meaningful smile. Su Xian hurriedly put it. The topic pulls back. The The case is very deep. What does the Taoist have to teach me? Daoist Jin Lian quipped. When you pretended to be a Confucian disciple in the Heaven and Earth Society. It's very clever. Su Dalong complained in his heart. I know. You old. Definitely watching us intrigue in the group. While showing an ant smile. It's all about joking. Su Qian'an said, Poor Dao. Analyze and analyze for you. There are a couple of things that are not right in your description. Su Qian was immediately overjoyed. There is a sense of joy that confirms the thoughts of the heart. He chose to communicate frankly and irreverently with the old Taoist priest. It is to take a fancy to the wisdom and rich experience of the other party. Old silver coins are despicable, but if it's an ally, they tend to give people a sense of security. After the Golden Lotus, Daoist groaned slightly. So the first thing that was wrong, it is the inaction of the traitorous government. If the first superintendent of the 14th Heavenly Sword of Sambar is suppressed, he should be the most anxious, but he was quiet. It's also possible, this insidious and cunning old thing. It's been a long time since I stopped caring about the building. The covert operation is also unknown. Su Qian silently defended the original and current supervisors. It must be like fire and water. The reason is simple. The master was suppressed. The apprentice was in charge of Tianjian in front of the superintendent with peace of mind. It's clear that the plasticist is broken. Otherwise, with the strength of the superintendent, Renzong can't stop it. Jin Lian continued. The second thing that's not right is the prospect. The day after the Sambo case, he canceled the grades. Don't you think it's weird? How can there be a reason to let the tiger return to the mountain? Su Qian immediately said, I have thought about these two questions. My guess at the time was, maybe it's just to open the gates, lure the snake out of the hole. It's just a pity that I can't get in touch, or grasp the state of the superintendent and the emperor of Yuanjing. They are too high-level. Daoist Jin Lian said. It's the word. Talk to me. It's not all. Number 6 is related to the Sambo case. Su Qian nodded. To be precise, the younger brother of the monk King Yuan may have something to do with this case. After he lost contact for no reason, I became more and more convinced of this suspicion. The Golden Lotus Daoist was not surprised. You've already been to the Blue Dragon Temple. I know the identity of King Yuan. What did you say? Senior brother Su Qian grabbed the teapot, poured a glass of water. After moistening his throat, he continued, There is a monk in Qinglong Temple. The law number is mixed. More than 1 year ago, eloped with Prince Yu's daughter-in-law, Lord Pingyang. Prince Jade was devastated, bedridden. Behind this matter, it involves the struggle between the two forces of honor and civil officials. Monk Henghui, in order to take the county lord of Pingyang to avoid searching, stole a magic weapon from Qinglong Temple that shielded the breath. I doubt it. Later, it fell into the hands of Jin Wuwei and Zhou Qixing. Daoist Jin Lian listened patiently. Wait for Su Qian to finish his analysis. He spoke. So, you want to check the news of Heng Hui through Heng Yuan. This is used to verify the guesses. Su Qian defended. That's the only breakthrough I'm going to have at the moment. Do you remember, Daoist? Heng Yuan said that the junior brother was taken captive, and the abbot of Qinglong Temple said that Heng Hui was eloping. Heng Yuan left Qinglong Temple on the way to investigate. Some clues may have been obtained. Jin Lian asked directly. You wish I could take you to him? Su Qian did not deny it. This is his name, is Golden Lotus Dao Chief. The second purpose of coming to the night party. A moonlit and starry night. Tens of thousands of miles away in the south, a large army of hundreds of men trekked through the wilderness. Carrying a torch, he walked silently. Lena stepped on small light cloth boots. The skirt only reaches the knee. Exposed long, straight calves. Brisk steps. Lena, bouncing around, looked a little out of place. This time, it was with the elders of the tribe who came out to experience. The destination is the series' sleeping intensive. Lena thought to herself, I figured out the reason for series resurgence. You could publish information in the Heaven and Earth Society. Let all the members owe me a debt. But only if it is. This reason does not pose a danger to the Gu people. At this time, the elder brother Mo sang in front turned around, reprimanded her sister Lena in a low voice. Be serious. Lena is not afraid of her brother's arrogance at all. The other brothers have sisters-in-law to scold. You don't have a mother-in-law. All day long, he only knows how to scold me. As he spoke, he smiled and hooked up with his brother. I heard that Dafeng's woman is watery and watery. The face is whiter than steam buns. Mosen, I'll help you grab a daughter-in-law back. Mo sang snorted coldly. What's the use of a pretty mother-in-law? What I need is a woman who tears the leopard by hand. Lena deliberately said with a look of regret. But I heard from a friend. The generous princess of Jinbei is very beautiful. The eldest princess is also very beautiful. There is also the arrival of the human sect. All of them are great beauties who have captivated the country and the city. Mo Santon looked over. Swallowed. Then you can help me ask how beautiful your friend is. No, where did you come from this kind of friend? Lena ignored her, jumping up and running ahead. There are 7 tribes of the ancient people. He is the beneficiary of the old gods. It's also a town keeper. Legend has it that after the old gods fell asleep, her spirit became the backbone of her heart. Her blood turned into ribs. Her venom turned into poisonous bones. His liver turned into medicine. His desires turned into jade bones. His eyes turned into heavenly bones. His bodily fluids turned into bones. This is the origin of the 7 tribes of the ancient people. There is also a legend in the ancient tribe. It is the day when the old gods resurrect and will reclaim their power. There is no one in the ancient tribe. I hope that this ancient beast that is on a par with the gods and Buddhas will be resurrected. Among them, the heavenly valley represents the eyes of the God series. It can observe the natural laws of heaven and earth. Therefore, the Amagani ministry is responsible for formulating legislation. The Gu tribe worked and cultivated according to the instructions of the Tiangu department. In addition, the Tiangu department is also proficient in divination and looking at equality. After the secretary Lena broke away from her clan, to the head of the Tiangu tribe, a rickety old woman. Tiangu's mother-in-law. You wait for me. Granny Amaya's face lifted the ravine. The eyes are light. Looking at Lena, the little baby is looking for something to her mother-in-law. Lena's eyes rolled and rolled as she said to her mother-in-law, I have a friend of that friend. Something strange has happened lately. He was particularly lucky, and it's the outrageous kind of good. Granny Tiangu said, It must be a person who shines brightly. He is a good person who does good deeds and accumulates virtues. Lena fell into memory. Is number 3 a good person? Probably, Lena said. But her luck was to pick up money. Pick up silver every day. A middle-aged man in the Tiangu department laughed. Picking up silver is some kind of luck. The little doll said nonsense. Laughter rang out all around, dispersed the solemn atmosphere of the people in the ranks. Granny Tiangu suddenly scolded and shut up. I saw that her face was serious. I grabbed Lena's hand. Where's your friend, little girl? Say it quickly. Lena frowned slightly. Suddenly I was a little overwhelmed. The people of the Tiangu department looked at each other. I can't understand a little girl's joke. It can make Granny Tiangu so excited. Mwasa's feet look out. I saw an anomaly in front of me. Daddy seems to have something wrong. The leader of the Korea tribe nodded calmly. He said in a voice full of anger, I'll take a look. She was 9 feet tall, the flower of the flock. It is 2 heads taller than the surrounding ancient people. The walking room should be firm. It's oppressive. What's wrong with Granny Tiangu? Lena heard her father's voice. Turning his head, he saw a burly and tall man. The muscles are as hard as rocks. A middle-aged man with a stiff facial contour walked over. He was 9 feet tall. the flower of the flock. It is 2 heads taller than the surrounding ancient people. The rickety mother-in-law of Amaya is with this. Bit is like a child in comparison. Granny Tenya looked up, slightly sweaty hands. Soon returned his gaze to Lena. Produce a Taoist girl. You say mother-in-law is waiting. Lena, because of Amaya's mother-in-law's fierce reaction. Some discomfort. Mother-in-law, what's wrong? Do you want to be the same as your friend on the 3rd? Do you pick up silver every day? Granny Tengu refused to leave. The large force then stopped. The elites of the Tengu department set their sights on the horse. Mother-in-law Tengu turned her head, said to a descendant of the headquarters behind him, "Tell the chiefs of the tribes to take a break. Girl, let's talk over there. You are not allowed to come with you." The leader of the Ligu tribe, whose name was Longtu, paused, indifferently watched. The girl was taken away by Grandma Tenya. The leaders of the other 5 divisions gathered. What's going on with the dragon figure? The leader of the Rigu tribe shook his head. Maybe you should ask the people of the Tengu division. Lena just said a joke to her mother-in-law. Who knew that my mother-in-law was so excited? What did he say? Lena has a friend who picks up silver every day. Granny Tengu came to a tree with a torch. It's already a long way from the big army. Only a tiny glow of fire could be seen from behind. Granny Tengu was no longer anxious and excited at this time. The girl talked to her mother-in-law about it. What the hell is going on? Lena said, I came in and made a friend. He said he had a friend, always picking up money for no apparent reason. I'm distressed about it. I don't understand why. Granny Tentani squinted. How to pick up silver in the right way. Pick up as much as you want in addition to the silver. What else is special? Unavoidably. You tell me clearly. Lena pursed her lips. I apologize for saying that I don't know. After all, it's a friend of a friend. But listen to my friend. It's like just picking up money. You can live a life of food and clothing. Lena was out of curiosity, thinking that Tengu can't observe everything. Know many things. He asked casually. Picking up silver every day. Whoever is not curious. Granny Amaya asked where the man was. Lena thought for a moment. Number 3 in Dafeng Jincheng. His friend should have been there as well. Then he said with some uncertainty. It seems to be in the capital of Dafeng. Granny Tengu was taken aback. Dafeng, capital city. Come to think of it, she shook her head repeatedly. It can't be and shouldn't. It is impossible to be in Dafeng capital anywhere. It doesn't make sense. Lena thinks she's a smart mother-in-law. It has been noticed that something is different. If it's just a small thing like picking up money, Granny Tenya will not drag herself to a secluded place to talk. I don't care so much. He asked mother-in-law, what's going on? Granny Tengu glanced at the simple, silly girl. That friend of yours, it should be the one who picks up silver every day, and not the so-called friends. My friend Lena opened her ruddy mouth slightly. The light blue eyes were stagnant, and Sanhao actually lied to me. I didn't expect him to be this kind of villain who likes to deceive people. He still feels bad. Sanhao is a chivalrous and courageous reader, the old man of the tribe. It's not the people who read books are all ironclad. Isn't it upright? Mother-in-law Tengu sighed lightly. He looked up at Yuluan. Shin said many years ago, 2 thieves for some purpose. Infiltrate large households, stealing a very important item. The whereabouts of that thing are still unknown. The thief who stole things also never appeared again. Large households. Some people know that something has been stolen. Some people still don't know about it. Lena blinked. What was stolen? Granny Tengu did not explain. Rather, it is said that it is a very important thing to repeat. Soon, the Valley Clan's elite team of 100 people came to the brothel. Poison rods permeated the hunting valley, gives rise to toxic vegetation, as well as all kinds of poisonous insects and beasts. This is a natural goo worm culture. The farm provides an endless supply of raw materials for the grain people. Lena has been here more than once, but they all catch goo worms on the periphery. Never went deeper. The team marched in silence. Sprinkle maggot powder and poison pill on the body. Immunity to the harassment of poisonous rods and poisonous insects. The clansmen of the Poison Goo tribe are like fish in water here. Look like $1 million. They followed the path trodden by those who had stepped before them, deep into the great Rift Valley. Gradually, among the dense foliage and grass, there was a murmuring sound. Poisonous insects that live here. I was alarmed by this group of uninvited guests. Suddenly, someone screamed. It was a man in a cloth robe. He screamed and threw down his male companion next to him. Hold on to him. Woman, I want woman. Strange screams rang out everywhere. Someone has something wrong. There are men and women. The man hugged the tree. The woman also hugged the tree. The rest of the Goo clan was unfazed. He even began to smile and point. Lena knew that these people had been poisoned by the jade bones. The tribesmen of the strand were scattered. Treat the poisoned tribesmen. They took the black out of the cloth bag. A mollusk like a locust. Sprinkle on the chest and neck of the poisoned person, as well as in the crotch of the pants. It's like being adsorbed to the surface of the skin by a locust. The breath pierces the blood vessels. Crazy devouring blood. After a while, the locusts swelled one by one. Satisfactorily sheds from the surface of the skin. The symptoms of the poisoned tribesmen improved immediately, except for the faster ones. There will be a weakness of the body that is hollowed out. People who last are barely affected. The group went deeper and deeper into the rift. Eventually, the team came to a halt in a flat field. There are no plants here. There are only bumpy stones. Poisonous fog fills the air. Lena saw a tall stone statue. It's vaguely a man. Wear loose-fitting robes. Wearing a high crown. Lena tugged at her brother's sleeve. Who are the people of Mozan? There is a scar on the left side of the face. Mo Sang-chun, who has an unruly temperament, said in a voice. I don't know his name, but you should have heard him call him a Confucian sage. Su's small courtyard. The candlelight is moving. Jean Liandao Chongpan sat on the bed. Shaking his head, he said, I've been searching for Charlotte in Hengyuan. But so far, all I know is he's still in the city. I don't know where he is. Xu Qian'an asked. You can't locate it by handing it over. Xu Qian'an remembered. The original number 9. But you can lock your position by handing over the book. And it doesn't take long. It stands to reason that the 6th has been missing for nearly 10 years. The Golden Lotus Dao leader should have found him. Jean Lien sighed and said, I guess number 6. Or rather, the book was sealed. Xu Qian'an was a little confused. What should I do if I am sealed? This is embarrassing my fat tiger. Daoist Jean Lien smiled confidently. Unless I can get close. This search, I walked most of the city. Search in the stupidest and safest way. If Yuan's handing book fragment is less than 30 zhang away from me, I could sense him right away, even if it is sealed. Don't doubt it. This is the inherent person of the treasure of heaven and earth. Xu Qian said that this forced you to pretend. But at the same time, he was relieved, although the method was stupid. But it's good to be effective. The most fearful thing is that there is no way at all. Jean Lien continued, if there is news on the 6th, I'll let you know right away. It's better for you to come forward than I do. I also need the power to fight people. After all, this is the territory of the Beijing City Guard. Speaking of which, Jean Lien Dao Chong seemed to remember something. By the way, what Wei Yuan thinks about this case? Xu Qian shook his head and sighed. He didn't have any opinion. Just let me do my job. At this time, he noticed that the expression of Daoist Jean Lien was very strange. Because there was a resentment in his expression. There is distrust. Do you think I'm a fool? Such a questioning meaning. Xu Qian was depressed. Why did the Taoist look at me like this? The Golden Lotus Daoist said unhappily, I'm afraid Wei Yuan wants to turn you into a dark line of beating people, or drive you out of the capital. Xu Qian's eyes widened in surprise. Daoist Jean Lien seemed to be very satisfied with Xu Qian's reaction. I can hand you a fragment of the handbook. Show that he values you enough. But he doesn't give you any guidance on the facts of the case. This proves that he wants you to anger Emperor Yuan Jingdi. You can't stay in the capital. Xu Qian'an was not convinced. I want to defend Wei Yuan. But when the words came to his mouth, he couldn't spit them out. Because Wei Yuan is very calm. Thoughts on this have indeed been revealed. Come to think of it, Xu Qian'an still argued that it was wrong. Wei Yuan was a little on the sidelines. But at best, it's laissez-faire. Don't care and don't meddle. It's up to me to do it. Daoist Jin Lian spoke. It's just that there is some hatred in the tone. You underestimate Wei Yuan too much. This man wielded power as a eunuch. Commanded hundreds of thousands of troops as a eunuch. When the Battle of Shanhaiguan, even the king of Jinbei was crushed by him. The ability, wrist, and scheming were first class at that time. I'm sure, as far as mourning is concerned, he certainly knows more than you do. Sue's wife sat still. I didn't speak for a long time. Is it really a plastic father-son relationship? Daoist Golden Lotus looked at him. I can't figure it out, though. Why did Wei Yuan force you to leave the capital? He doesn't lack claws. After inserting the knife, the Golden Lotus Daoist wanted to slip away. Anything else? Xu Qian'an naturally would not let go of the opportunity to gather wool. I want to go to Pingyuan Bofu, but it was heavily guarded. I have a means to get in, but there is no means of subduing people silently. I would like to ask the Taoists for help. Daoist Jin Lian asked. You want to go to Uncle Pingyuan's sister-in-law? Xu Qian'an nodded. Pingyuan said. The junior brother Hinghui was abducted by the Yazi. He won't be left untargeted. Since I can't find him now, far. Then try to find a breakthrough from Pingyuanbo first. Jin Lian said. But he's dead. Xu Qian'an smiled. Doesn't he still have a son-in-law? The Golden Lotus Daoist was a little embarrassed. This thing won't be thinking. The Golden Lotus Daoist is puzzled by your current identity. Why don't you take the initiative to ask? Xu Qian'an explained casually. After all, Uncle Pingyuan is a noble lineage. In the absence of evidence, I can't be violent, and normal investigations are easy to be constrained. Want to get answers. The means of light and darkness have to complement each other. The Tao Gate is in the Genshin Impact realm. He is a well-deserved bull-bearer. Let him obediently cooperate. Say everything you can say. I guess it can be done. Daoist Jin Lian said, You are quite experienced. This doesn't match your previous life experience. Xu Qian'an saw that he agreed. Is also in the mood to start ridiculing Jin Lian. Some of the cars look very new. The night's kilometers are scary. Daoist Jin Lian frowned. What does this mean? Xu Qian'an made an unfathomable look. I mean, you only see me on the surface. In a person's life, it is always more wonderful than the words on the dossier. Daoist Jin Lian nodded. The topic was not continued. You let go of your mind. I leaned over into the sea of your corpses. Sue's wife An Suk was sentenced. You're out of body again. Jin Lian did not deny it. My body was hurt. The strength is greatly reduced. And my Een God is intact. It's a good way to play my strengths. There's also a Shao path in the inner city. I can't just go out with you. Ordinary gongs, I can hide. But if it is seen by the Golden Gong, it's not good for you or me. In the capital, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Threats don't have to come from watchmen alone. Xu Qian'an was speechless, and it was true that he said so. But you want to turn my Genshin into your own shape. It's too much. And we haven't said that yet. Although the Golden Lotus Tao is still long. It's trusted, but it's not yet there. And the other party's primordial god is not yet there. The extent of the invasion of the Sea of Corpses. And he didn't guarantee that Lotus Tao Chief would not owe him some secrets. For example, memories of past lives. For example, the floating fragrance Orin has a round and snow-white pupil sac. Daoist Jin Lian shook his head. How is that good? At this moment, a terrible cat meow came from the ridge of the roof. Xu Qian suddenly smiled, pointing to the top of his head. The grievances are long. The golden lotus Daoist's face suddenly darkened. However, the orange cat was born. Soon the Yin god of the golden lotus Dao chief. It was possessed by this black cat. Xu Qian changed into a hairpin suit for a watchman, leaving the courtyard openly. Along the way, you will encounter the Imperial Sword Guard. I saw the hairpin suit on his body. Don't even bother to ask. It's just going to be weird. Why did this watchman have a black cat standing on his shoulder? Only when I meet a fellow watchman. Xu Qian will be stopped. But just pull out the gold medal. Say that I am ordered to investigate the case. It solves everything. Xu Qian didn't deliberately hurry, but with the city he is now destroying. It only took an hour. Came to Pingyuan, near Bofu. Xu Qian looked around. Make sure there is no one around. He found a secluded corner. Tear off a page from a magic book. It records a leaf obstacle to the end of the means. He used the opportunity to ignite the paper. An invisible force enveloped Xu Qian and the black cat. Confucianism's strict law. The orange-yellow pupils of a black cat. Staring at this scene, Daoist Jin Lian suddenly thought of a lot of details. No wonder. Number 3 wants to shape himself as a student of Yinlu Academy. It's not just because his cousin is a college student. He himself seems to have a lot to do with the academy. Otherwise, how could you have a book on the spell of carving the road? Golden Lotus Dao Chief directly excludes the option of cousin gifts. First of all, it is impossible for ordinary students to be treated so favorably by Confucianism. Secondly, for students, this warranty. How can it be easily given away? I'm afraid I won't even be willing to use it. The scholars of Yinlu Academy have always looked down on Wufu. Why do they give him such treasures? While the Golden Lotus Daoist was thinking about this question, I saw Xu Qian from the fragments of the handing book. Pull out a cloak. Cover yourself. The black cat shook its head. Why are you so skilled? Xu Qian suddenly asked. Before the action, 2 trivia came to mind. I'd like to ask the Taoist chief. The black cat shook the air. Mouthful. Say it. Xu Qian pondered for a moment, talking about whether Ling Long is only close to royals. The black cat nodded. Theoretically, yes. Ling Long is happy to lose her child, and not like royalty. Xu Qian nodded with a deep groan. One more thing. Today I went to the imperial city to investigate the case. I heard that Ling Long was inexplicably crazy. The combined efforts of the guards could not cure her. Also almost injured Princess Lingen. The black cat didn't speak for a long time. Xu Qian called out to the Taoist in a suspicious whisper. The black cat looked around vigilantly. The solemn voice of the Golden Lotus Dao leader was heard. The seal under the mulberry has entered the city. Xu Qian was taken aback. How so? The black cat explained that Ling Long was born with a good grasp of the number of vigorous energy. And it is not comparable to ordinary qi training. He can sense things that ordinary people can't. No wonder Chu Tsaiwei's vigorous qi technique could not see any abnormality. He's not good at learning. That's why Ling Long knelt down and licked me. He could see the odd luck in me. So to speak, wouldn't the prison warrants also be able to see it? Xu Qian was shocked by this speculation. Samber's seal has entered the city. Ling Long sensed threatened. So madness Dafa. Hellbent on escaping the imperial city. No, I'll figure it out tomorrow. Reveal this matter to Wei Yuan. Villa hanging talk. Xu Qian clinged to the courtyard walls. I touched the outside of the backyard wall of Pingyuan Bo's mansion. Climbed through the walls. After landing, looked cautiously left and right. Confirmed just now. A sound of breaking the air did not disturb the master Xu Qian in the house. Then a spell that obstructed the eye evaded several groups of guards in the palace. I came to the largest courtyard in the east. Just stepped into the yard. The pinna moves. He heard a high-pitched voice, unabashed voice, and the heavy gasps of men. He felt under the window. Finger condensation of qi. Pierce the highly flexible window paper. Look through the small holes. This hole is facing the master bed. The movement of those two. It intuitively fell into Xu Qian's eyes. Xu Qian sighed in his heart. It's better to come early than to come at a good time. There was a slight noise above him. It was the sound of a cat's claws piercing the window paper. Xu Qian raised his head. He saw the black cat standing on top of his head on his hind legs. Two front paws against the window. The face is attached to the hole. Watch attentively. Dao Chief, you are good for this bite. Xu Qian proposed. He should be Uncle Pingyuan's son-in-law. Rush right in. Daoist Jean Lien vetoed Xu Qian's suggestion. We'll go in when we're done. That's when men are at their most lax. Xu Qian complained in his heart. You'll regret it, Chief. You don't know how terrible Takeo is. After all, we are strong and brave. After 2 incense sticks, the time passed. Golden Lotus Daoist said helplessly. Well, I'll admit you're right. Xu Qian thought happily. That's all. I think it was my first pajama incense, but I lasted until midnight. After a long time, the inside finally ended. Xu Qian and the black cat were just about to go around to the front door. Sneak into the house. Subdue the opponent with thunderous means. But at this moment, Xu Qian suddenly felt creepy. Goosebumps protruding. It was as if blood-colored thorns pierced his flesh behind him. Inexplicable fear rushed through my mind. Something is coming. Xu Qian suddenly heard the shouts of the guards in the distance. Who dares? Trespassing on Pingyuan Bofu. Halfway through the conversation, it turned into a scream. This was followed by a wave of gas engine explosion. Screams rang out one after another. Soon there was a dead silence again. Pingyuan Bo flute that has entered the time of the idler. Movement was heard. I didn't even have time to put on my clothes. He quickly jumped out of bed. Take off the sword that hangs on the wall. Rushing out of the house with an ugly face. But just came out. He regretted it. A man wrapped in a black robe appeared in the courtyard. His face is hidden in his hood. The aura he exuded. Let Pingyuan's uncle's legs tremble. Just want to run away. Uncle Pingyuan's sister-in-law spoke in a trembling voice. What kind of person? A hoarse voice came from the hood. I'm here to collect debts. The black-robed man looked up. A pale face was revealed. Uncle Pingyuan screamed. They began to tremble as they spoke. It's you, aren't you dead? I watched you die with my own eyes. The man in the black robe said in a hoarse voice. I died but crawled out of hell again. He raised his right hand. Those hands seemed to come from the devil. Blood red all over. The moment I saw these hands, the fear in Xu Qian exploded. The blood-red palm puffed up into a cyclone. Inhale Uncle Pingyuan's sister-in-law into the palm of his hand. Uncle Pingyuan's sister-in-law kicked his legs wildly. Suddenly, his flesh was shriveled down. In an instant, it turned into a dry corpse. People who were alive a moment ago. The next moment, he lost his life. Xu Qian seemed to have lightning in his mind. Ass fucks. The black-robed man let out a laugh. An opportunity to vent your anger. Fry the dried corpses into chicken powder. After killing someone, the black-robed man turned his head. The cold gaze looked at Xu Qian's hiding place. He opened his palms under the window. The rolling cyclone reappears. Xu Qian's scalp exploded at this moment. He found out. His feet were planted on the ground. Lean back. A little bit of being sucked. Get close to each other. A palm that devours human life like an abyss. Xu Qian reached into his arms. Pinch out the strong pill given by Chu Kaiwei. Xu Qian stuffed all the pills into his mouth in one go. Then he pressed the hilt of the black gold sword. Precipitates all emotions. A dark golden sword flashed in the night. Heaven and earth slashed out with the sound of his gun. It's a pity. The black-robed man took his move with one hand, and it went on unscathed. Xu Qi was relieved. The pupil shrank slightly. His palms had cracked. the muscles of the right arm holding the knife spasm. This is my constant enemy. And in the face of such an enemy, the intensively given advice is not a slash. Instead, run away. At this time, the black cat shook the air. Speak and run. At the same time it jumped up, pounced on the black-robed man. The gas engine is shaking. The black cat's body fell apart in midair. The golden lotus Tao is long and the spirit is highlighted. Crashed into the black-robed man. Xu Qian'an secretly prayed for the old silver coin of the golden lotus. Take care. And then he didn't look back. Take the opportunity to jump up to the roof in 3 or 2 steps. Escape over the wall. Run wild. Don't dare to look back. Repeatedly jump sideways on the ridge. Xu Qian'an, who faced a high-grade powerhouse for the first time. There was still a strong fear in my heart. If there is no Jin Lian Dao, he will sacrifice his life to save him. In the next round, he will definitely die. There's no time to cast a spell in magic. And even if there is Jin Lian Dao's help, spells within magic, most of them can't compete with each other. That piercing fear, it was something Xu Qian'an had never felt. At this time, 2 watchmen stood on the rooftop to watch. Notice Xu Qian'an in a black robe. Both of them drew their throwing knives at the same time. Angry shouting what people. Xu Qian'an took off his teasing hat. Pull out the gold medal. It's me. Xu Qian'an is now a man of the year in the yamen. First, the 2 Jin Luo were jealous of him. Then there was a fuss. The dispute over the knife slashing Xu Qian'an Luo. There was no one in the yamen who didn't know him. After Xu Qian'an took back the gold medal, a few violent coughs. A fishy smell came from deep in the throat. He said in a deep voice that Pingyuan Bofu had been attacked by assassins. The official was instructed to investigate the case. Collide with the assassins. The 2 colleagues froze in place for a moment. Pingyuan Bofu is making trouble with assassins again. Xu Qian'an continued, the assassin was dangerous. Do not act rashly. Hurry up, senior sister. With serious faces, they pulled out a copper pipe from their waists. Fingers are gently twisted in the recessive. A dark red line of fire rose into the air with a smile. Exploded high altitude. Xu Qian'an was relieved when he saw this, and I went back to recuperate first. Again, you wait for support. If you meet someone in a black robe, but not me, remember to dodge. At this time, Xu Qian'an saw the roof ridge in the distance. There is an orange cat. Deep pupils looked at him. Xu Qian'an was a little puzzled. What is this cat doing with me? But then he was in a fog. It was the Taoist leader Xu Qian'an who picked up the cat. Hide in a corner. He let out another breath and said, Where did you come from, cat? I knew you were going to be fine. Xu Qian'an felt guilty and said to the Taoist, I had just lost the idea of fighting. The orange cat speaks. The tone was tired. Ordinary people see big bugs. Running away is an instinctive reaction. And the gap between you and it's bigger than the gap between cats and big bugs. Xu Qian'an rolled his eyes and said, Is it really good that you are so analogous? Then he changed the subject. If you guessed it right, he is the seal that was suppressed in Sambo. Xu Qian'an said, while taking out the gold sore medicine and gauze to bandage yourself. The tiger's mouth is because of too many strong pills. It alleviates the weakness after the slash of heaven and earth. There is no such intense feeling of exhaustion that the body is hollowed out. At this time, the Golden Lotus Daoist was shocked and said, How can you see it? Xu Qian'an said in a deep voice that the Yongzhen Mountain and River Temple exploded that day. All 300 forbidden soldiers patrolling the perimeter were killed. The deaths are the same, turned into a dried corpse. The Golden Lotus Daoist suddenly turned out to be like this. There was a moment of silence. Said, Then you guessed wrong. What is sealed under Sambo is not the first superintendent. Xu Qian'an nodded. There is no rebuttal. If it is the first generation of supervisors, won't kill a small person. Uncle Pingyuan's sister-in-law was extremely frightened before he died. Seems to recognize the man in the black robe. unless you kill the Praetorian army. It was the person who infiltrated Sambo to blow up the mountain and river temple in Yongzhen. But this may have long been dismissed. There's no way a master can sneak into Sambo. Su wife and sighed. I knew and I had a vague guess in my mind. It just needs to be verified. The orange cat jumped off his shoulder. My god has been hit hard. It's very likely that you're going to fall in. I need you to do the poor a favor. Xu Qian'an is worried about how to repay the grace of saving his life. Chief, please. The orange cat speaks. Find Luo Yuheng for the poor road and ask for a rejection pill. Xu Qian'an asked blankly. Lu Yuheng Golden Lotus Daoist said, it is the Daoist of Renzong. Barely a poor junior sister. Xu Qian'an was embarrassed. Dao Chief, your rank in the Emperor's sect is quite high. The dignified Renzong Daoist is your junior sister. And so on. Come to think of it, it is a bit difficult for Su Qi to install it. Is there any token of the Tao? The orange cat smiled wryly with a human nature. Just show Uncle D to him. As for whether you can get it, look at his mood. Xu Qian'an looked sluggish. Look at his mood, Orange Cat explained. The human sect and the heavenly sect are like fire and water. The relationship between the land sect and the two sects is not strained. But it's not that good. Xu Qian slandered in his heart. You're too dry. A family that loves and kills each other. But he nodded. I'll try it tomorrow. The orange cat heard this. Rub it out at once. After a few moments, the sound slowly came from the rooftop. I'll come back to you tomorrow. Xiang Yuzhong squatted on the ground of the courtyard with a gloomy face, spread with a light brown powder. He picked up a tiny piece of minced meat from the ground. The meat is very dry. It's like air-dried bacon being ground into powder. Dozens of gongs surrounded Pingyuan Bofu. When they arrived, Pingyuan Bofu has been wiped out. Uncle Pingyuan's family, including the people in the house, had no intention of surviving. The corpses were in the same state of death. It's like bacon that's been dried for years. Jiang Yuzhong's heart was full of 10,000 alpacas. I was also on duty when Uncle Pingyuan was killed. All the unfortunate things were on me. At this moment, a silver gong came out of the house. Said loudly, Jiang Jingong. There was also a survivor in the house. Jiang Yuzhong stood up with a calm face. Throw away that piece of minced meat. Then he crossed the threshold and entered the house. Glance at it. Lock-hugging quilt. Snow and white are revealed. A woman with a frightened look. He is the concubine of Uncle Pingyuan. Jiang Luzhong looked at him. The inheritance of the father's business by the son is also common in the case of concubines. When the court dignitaries marry concubines, it is ordinary. There is a huge difference in age. Once the father died, there are only two options for these concubines. Either work like a maid, either attach to a new heir. Jiang Luzhong asked, What did you hear? Or see something? The woman shook her head, said obediently, I was having fun with Dalang at the time. Afterwards, he fell into a deep sleep. Jiang Yuzhong looked at it for 4 weeks. There is no doubt about it. That's when he said, let him get dressed. Bring back the yamen of the watchman. At this time, Ain Luo hurriedly told Jiang Jinluo. The body of Pingyuan's son-in-law was not found. Jiang Yuzhong glanced at it with a deep gaze. Yard powder. No need to look for it. But as soon as his voice fell, outside someone shouted again, Sir. There is a case here in the exterior window. Anxious, he heard the sound and came to the window facing the bedroom. I saw that the window paper had been pierced with 2 holes. I just happened to be able to see the situation in the bedroom. Except for the murderer. There were other people present at the time. Jiang Luzhong muttered for a long time. Asked who first discovered Uncle Pingyuan's abnormality. The silver gong replied to the 2 gongs on duty. I'm going to call them over. Soon 2 gongs were brought over. Jiang Luzhong asked, when you found out about the situation. Something suspicious nearby. The 2 gongs shook their heads at the same time and did not find any deliberate figures. The case is not what we found either. Jiang Luzhong was stunned, and then I asked if he didn't find out. The gong said it was a gong. Xu Qian and Jiang Luzhong heard this. There was a gleam in his eyes. It's that kid. Xu Qian returned to the small courtyard. He fell asleep without taking off his clothes. Wake up naturally after 3 hours. He let out a long breath. I feel a little uncomfortable with the soreness all over my body. Soon he got dressed and left the courtyard. Ride straight to Qinglong Temple. Just waiting for him to reach his destination. I got an unexpected news. The function abbot went to the western regions. That mellow Xu Qian'an temple, said the donor with an expressionless face. After leaving that day, and the abbot departed. The poor monk really didn't know the reason this time. Xu Qian was speechless. Started avoiding me so quickly. What a psychological shadow you have for me. The abbot of Panshu said. Responsibilities of the Blue Dragon Temple. It's staring at the seal under the sampo. On that day, he expressed his intention to go west. I don't know if the old monk will be on the way. Take a monkey as an apprentice. That must be interesting, Xu Qian said in a friendly tone. This official wants to trouble the master with one thing. Hengqing was willing to stare at him vigilantly. A thief-proof look. Xu Qian continued, I want to see the portrait of Heng He. If there is no in the temple, please find someone to draw immediately. Hengqing breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, it's just this time. I thought this thing was going to make a fuss. A cup of tea. He came out holding a scroll of paintings. Handed to Xu Qian. The latter took it. Slowly unfold the sum in the picture scroll. Shang has handsome facial features. Eyebrows and eyes spirit. He is a man with excellent skin. Sure enough, it was him. Xu Qian confirmed. The black-robed man last night was Monk Heng Hui. Although the temperament has changed drastically, but the facial features are still vaguely the same. Heng Hui, monk of Xinglong Temple. It may itself be involved in a funeral case. Number 6 Heng Yuan swore again. The younger brother was abducted by the Yazi. In the light of last night, the conversation between Ping Yuan Bodizi and the black-robed man. Xu Qian suddenly had a guess in his heart. Can't wait to verify. If it weren't for the bad state last night, I urgently needed to rest. At that time, he wanted to choose to go out of the city overnight. I'm really sorry. I really regret it. But how could it be him? What does he have to do with the seal under Sano? In this way, it seems that it is not the first generation of supervisors. No wonder the current supervisor is not in a hurry at all. Also feigning illness. But what will it be if it is not the first generation of supervision? I can think of it. It may be that the seal is on Heng Hui. Just a monk. It is impossible to plan this shocking case. There are people behind him. It is none other than the king of Jinbei. Xu Qian left Qinglong Temple thoughtfully. Returned to the capital. Returned to the yamen of the watchman. He made a clear sense of purpose and went straight to the Curiosity Building. I want to tell Wei Yuan this truth. Little Doubting is a gifted child. The brain was still asleep this morning. The body rises on its own. Sheikh woke up the maid who was taking care of him. Then close your eyes. Under the service of the maid, dress, wash your face, and brush your teeth. Then he was led to the antechamber. Wait until you smell the aroma of rice porridge and meat buns. Little Beanie opened his eyes suddenly. Happy to find yourself asleep and asleep. I slept at the dining table. At this time, Xiao Doubting asked what about the cauldron. The reason he asks this is that every time this happens, the greedy big brother will sit at the table early, coveting his meat buns. Aunt Bao didn't have a good airway to care about him. Little Doubting's little face blooms with innocence. The smile of the big pot of meat is mine. He just finished speaking. He sniffled. It's so fragrant, and he urged. Eat it quickly. Diced beans looked in the direction where the aroma wafted from. Not the incense here. Then, Chu Kaiwei, who was carrying a large bag and a small bag, asked Suning Yin. Second Uncle Su said in his heart, why did this girl come uninvited? But he still answered, I guess I'm sleeping. Chu Kaiwei shook her little brain. I'm from her yard when she's not there. But after saying that, she saw the chubby little girl. I was deeply attracted by the morning market in my arms. Look at those watery and innocent eyes. Chu Kaiwei relented again. Do you want to eat? Xiao doubting pecked the little brain melon hard. Said that he wanted to eat it. I'm looking forward to it too. Chu Kaiwei said, that sister, share a little bit with you. At this time, second uncle Shui coughed twice, glared at the greedy young girl. Speaking earnestly, Sister Lin Yin is a guest. Wait until he's done eating before you eat it. Little Doubting frowned. It's like making a tough decision. But the little bean is also very negotiable, as long as there is something to eat. Chu Kaiwei touched his brain. Really sensible to finish. Chu Kaiwei was thinking about last night, while solving the problem of food and clothing. A few minutes later, he was surprised to find, I brought 3 or 4 pounds of morning food. It's all gone. Could it be that the little girl ate it while I wasn't paying attention? She looked suspiciously at the sidelines. Shuelingyin's head is not as high as the table. Xiao Doubting had a bag of tears in his eyes. Said sister with tears in her eyes, Are you entertaining me? Second Uncle Su, who watched it for a long time, as if it had been felt. I saw Su lining when she grew up. Curious, after listening to Jiang Luzhong's report. Nodding. Got it. The Yazi organization that you have captured may make progress. Jiang Luzhong has been secretly investigating. It did not alarm any Yamen or forces. After the death of Uncle Ping Yuan, they began to hibernate. But because it has not been suppressed, for the time being, they are all staying in the capital. The net can be closed at any time. Wei Yuan said in a deep voice. So it seems Uncle Ping Yuan's son-in-law inherited the Yazi organization, while they didn't know that Ping Yuan's uncle's sister-in-law was killed. Closing the internet cafe, Jiang Luzhong hugged his fists and took the order. But he still looks like he wants to say something. Wei Yuan glanced at him. If you have something to say it. Jiang Luzhong said his speculation. When Ping Yuan's uncle's sister-in-law was killed, Xu Qian'an was also present. I don't know why he sneaked into Ping Yuan's mansion, but he must have seen the murderer. At this time, a Yama came to inform the Duke of Wei. Gong Xu Qian asked to see. Wei Yuan smiled when he heard this, just in time to pass him up. Soon Xu Qian went up to the top floor of the Haoqi building. Wei Yuan smiled. The voice is gentle. There was no questioning tone. Xiang Jinluo said that you went to Ping Yuan Bofa last night. Xu Qian replied calmly. The lowly duty is to investigate the case. Jiang Luzhong was stunned. His brow furrowed. He suspected that Xu Qian was lying. Ping Yuanbo died long before the Sambo case, except for one Yazi organization. There are no clues at all to prove it. The cases of Pinjuwambo and Sambo are involved. Wei Yuan still said indifferently what he had found. Xu Qian did not answer. His gaze paused slightly on Jiang Luzhong. Wei Yuan was used to this little gong. Retreat left and right and asked Jiang Jinluo to go down first. What else can Jiang Luzhong say? I could only leave depressed. Wait for Jiang Luzhong to go away. Only then did Xu Qian open his mouth and say to Duke Wei, I did meet the attacker last night. His identity was also confirmed. Wei Yuan asked who it was. Xu Qian does not hide it. Hung a monk of Qinglong Temple. That is, to steal the magic weapon of Qinglong Temple. The monk who eloped with the Lord of Bin Duong. I suspect he has Sambo's seal on him. Wei Yuan glanced at him. How so? Xu Qianchen said that Ping Yuan's uncle's son-in-law was dead. The same is true of the Forbidden Army who died that day. Wei Yuan smiled and said with a smile, You did a good job. This is a very useful clue. Xu Qian bowed his hand and retired first. After saying that, he thought to himself, Since Dad Wei is bent on supporting himself, then I won't force him to help. I just want to work quietly in the Yamen. Xu Qian walked out of the Curiosity Building. Saw Jiang Luzhong guarding downstairs. Old Jiang greeted him and frowned and said, "What's going on?" Xu Qian's heart moved. Ping Yuanhua's case is handled by Jiang Jinluo. Zhang Luzhong was suddenly a little depressed. Lao Tzu's sons are all handled by the official. Xu Qian smiled. But I still told him about Heng Hui's closure. Zhang Luzhong listened, instantly revealed. At the same time, I was shocked. At this time, Xu Qian said Jiang Jinluo with a sincere face. We should work together to deal with this. In this way, you not only solve the case of Ping Yuanhua. At the same time, he also participated in the funeral case. And I've already looked into this case. Is there credit to earn together? Zhang Luzhong sweated slightly. This was Xu Qian's heartfelt laughter. A big hand of Takeo Takahira was fooled into his own camp. Wei Yuan doesn't help me. Then I'll find a helper myself. The two of them talked. I saw Wei Yuan, who was in a relaxed body, walking downstairs. Wei Yuan saw that the two were still at the door. Then he casually said that he would follow me into the palace and prison. Su's wife looked at the back of the two leaving. It should be the killing of Uncle Ping Yuan's sister-in-law. Emperor Yuan Jing was furious. Xu Qian left the yamen, rode in the direction of the imperial city. It's not fast, because he wants to take the time to sort out his thoughts. Maybe my assumptions are wrong. The mastermind behind the scenes is not the king of Jinbei at all. King Jinbei tried to rebel. Therefore, he teamed up with the Northern Demon Clan and the Northeast Witch God cult. Blown up the Sampo seal. The first superintendent was released, trying to make the capital chaotic. But now it's sealed. Is it the first generation of supervisors? I've been shaken. In addition, if the king of Jinbei is the mastermind behind the scenes, Heng Hui can't make sense when he closes this line. Heng Hui closes. Involved, it is a dispute of interest between the civilian clique and the Xuangui clique. It seems a bit far-fetched to throw this pot on the head of the king of Jinbei. The Scarf's plan is to find Heng Hui, grab all his puzzles, and solve them. Into catching Hui, finding number 6 is key. Number 6 is Heng Hui's senior brother. The latter should not kill people. The outline of the imperial city came into view. Su Qi Inerquo moved. Someone behind him called his name. Chu Kaiwei patted the horse to catch up. I said, unhappily, I will go to the Su mansion to find you this morning. You weren't there, you just went to the yamen. You're still not there. Nicholas Song said. You may have gone to Jiaofeng Temple to find floating incense and fool around. Su Qian said solemnly. He's slandering my character. I never go to a place like Jiaofeng Temple. As he spoke, he covered his eyes with his hands. Don't count with hope. Although I am a decent man, but I don't want to be stared at. Chu Kaiwei tilted her head and didn't have a good airway. They say that the floating incense is your favorite. Su's wife, and Lima, denied his righteous words. Fu Xiang is just a friend I just made. It's not a good match. Chu Kaiwei saw him like this. I didn't dig any deeper. Let's get back to the point. The 4 heavenly supervisors have detected demonic energy. It's exactly the same as the day Samber was bombed. I'm here to inform you. Su Qian sighed. I already know about it. I almost died at the hands of the other party. Speaking of which, Su Qian changed the subject. Do you still have that Diana pill? Chu Kaiwei said another day. I didn't bring it with me. Su Qian refused when he heard this. I don't want another day. I want a day. Chu Kaiwei patted her horse and took a few steps forward. Then turn around and wave your hand. I'll go to your house before dusk. I'm going to find the eldest princess. Left first, Su Qian watched. His distant back was a little speechless. This foodie is not going to the eldest princess's mansion. It's just going to a restaurant to be merry. Su Qian soon came to Lingbao Pass. There were 2 little road boys at the door, looking at Su Qian, who was leaning over on horseback. Su Qian took the initiative to speak and show the gold medal. In Xia, Su Qian was on an errand in the yamen. By His Majesty's commandment. Thorough investigation of the Sambo case. I want to build a national teacher. I hope that the 2 Taoist masters will pass it on. a Taoist boy said as he opened the door and walked in. Wait a minute, adult. Xu Qian waited for more than 10 minutes. Dao Tong went and returned. Shaking his head, he said that the Daoist was practicing. No outsiders in sight. Adults, please come back. Xu Qian was a little helpless. That's what it means to be missing. It seems that the Emperor's gold medal really didn't work. Can only expose the existence of Uncle D. Come to think of it, Xu Qian took out 2 gold ingots, stuffed into the hand of the Taoist boy. The 2 Taoist masters are helping me with a sentence. Silence is better than sound at this point. Dao Dong went in again. 10 minutes later, the Taoist boy, who went in, had a warm smile on his face. Said Lord Xu, the Taoist has pleas. Xu Qian followed Dao Tong. Came to the deepest part of the Lingbao Temple. A Taoist ant with a beautiful appearance. Sit cross-legged on the pool. Xu Qian was staring at him when he entered the hospital. Look all the way. I couldn't tell his age. It feels like a light, mature woman who is just 30. I feel like a familiar dripping out of a beautiful woman who is looking for knowledge. Or you take a closer look, you can also see innocence in her. The charm of the demon mixed together. I would have given birth to one. Gotta find a way to marry this woman back home. It's because I've been close to women for too long. Or the Renzong has a special method of cultivation. The idea of seducing Xu Qian flickered. But on the surface, it is quiet. Luo Yuheng opened his beautiful eyes. It was Jean Lian who asked you to come to me. Su's wife is on the road. It was the Golden Lotus Dao Chang'in god who was hit hard. There are also wounds in the flesh. Asked me to come and ask for an example. Jiu and Dan Luo Yuheng asked again. You are a member of the Heaven and Earth Society. Holding his own name Emperor Uncle. Luo Yuheng's voice is very textured and magnetic, like a modern-day voice actor. Hearing this, Xu Qian raised a burst of evil fire. However, Xu Qian's concentration is still excellent. He replied without humility or arrogance. Number 3. Luo Yuheng nodded. Beautiful eyes stared at Xu Qian. Silent for a long time. Suddenly he snorted. A look of confusion flashed across his face. The character Daoists said, Your number of lives is very strange. Tell me about your birthday. Xu Qian is upright. He can see through my anomalies too. But Xu Qian still reported his birthday. Luo Yuheng's slender jade hand stretched out his sleeve. The crystal jade fingers pinched. Forget for a moment. Willow frowned. It seems it's something difficult to explain. Xu Qian was a little nervous. Some asked with anticipation how the national teacher was. Luo Yuheng said lightly. Shenho Xu Qian was too nervous. I heard it for a while. His heart suddenly became crooked. How do you know I like Shenho? Although he said that it was my birthday. The image of the dark river represents. He found that evil thoughts were on the rise. This woman always reminds me unconsciously. 36 Emperor's sister. Mom's friend. Kind aunt, and so on. It's certainly not that I have a problem. It was he who polluted my mind. This is a characteristic that is unique to people. I'll have to go back and ask Daoist Jean Lian. At this time, Luo Yuheng said in that textured voice. Unremarkable. After Xu Qian heard these 4 words, suddenly the fire went out. It seems that he can't see through the specific situation on his own body. Just like the Golden Lotus Dao Chief. I can only feel it vaguely. At this time, Luo Yuheng took out a porcelain bottle from his sleeve. Flick your fingers. Seeping floated in front of Xu Qian. Xu Qian took seeping and thanked the national teacher. Outside the imperial study of Gongcheng, Wei Yuan approached head-on. Father-in-law Lu, complained to Duke Wei. You're here. Your Majesty sent me behind this palace. Hurry up and go. Your Majesty is furious in the imperial study. Those old things just impeached you in front of your Majesty. See for yourself. In short, caution is the best. Wei Yuan nodded calmly. He seems to have an aura that the sky is not shocked even when the sky falls. It was not affected by Gong Lu's words. Gong Lu and Wei Yuan are in one camp. Wei Yuan was the spiritual leader of the entire eunuch group. Any minister of the court who wants to put eyeliner in the palace. Extremely difficult, but Wei Yuan can do it easily. Wei Yuan came to the door of the imperial study. I heard the sound of Emperor Yuan Jing scolding from inside. Waste is all waste. The Sambo case has not yet been solved. The clues you both have. There was not a single little gong. What's the use of the court raising the two of you? What do I want you to do? The case of the destruction of the Pingyuan Bofu spread all over the government and the opposition today. The princes and nobles fell into an inexplicable panic. On the other hand, Shangshu impeached Wei Yuan and strictly investigated the murderer, while secretly strengthening the security forces in the house. For a while, people were panicked. Some people say that it was the demon clan powerhouse who invaded the capital, wantonly killed important officials of the imperial court. Troubled dynasty. Some people say that Buddhism is making trouble in the dark. The purpose was to proselytize the Central Plains, force the Daebong dynasty to submit. Wei Yuan entered the imperial study amid the sound of congratulations and scolding. As soon as Emperor Yuan Jing saw him come in, angrily grabbed a plate of dark poison, smashed towards Wei Yuan, who had just come in. If you can't find the murderer in 3 days or 3 days, I'll cut off your position. Wei Yuan slowly picked up the dark poison scattered all over the place. The clerk sighed. Why should your majesty be angry? Cultivation is the cultivation of the mind. Don't mess with your mood. Emperor Yuan Jing snorted coldly. Displeasure was written all over his face. Your Majesty, the Secretary of the Criminal Department, Chen Dao. The watchman allowed the murderer to flee twice in succession. Chen suspected that he was wronged. Collusion with foreigners to harbor trouble. Please Your Majesty to investigate it strictly. Emperor Yuan Jing did not fight. Looked at Chen Hongguang and Chen Fuyin, who bowed their heads and were silent. I think that although Boyan is a fourth product, however, it has jurisdiction over 24 counties around the capital. The power is no weaker than these 6 books. Chen Hongguang is an old fritter, with the idea that neither side can be offended. Said that the funeral case is not over yet. Now there is a case of Pingyuan Bofu destroying the door. Your Majesty, don't be angry. You have to be calm. The minister felt that he should listen to what Wei Gong had to say. Wei Yuan was out of the ranks. Your Majesty, Pingyuan is not dark and morning is not dark is the same case. In the imperial study, including Emperor Yuan Jing, everyone's faces changed slightly. They all wondered if they had heard it wrong. Or maybe they think Wei Yuan's words are too shocking. Wei Yuan didn't look at everyone's faces. Instead, he said loudly, it has been found out who is the murderer of the Pingyuan Bo door destruction case. Several Zhang Feng subconsciously strengthened the military department. Who was Wei Yuan glancing at him? But his questions were not answered. Instead, he said to Emperor Yuan Jing, please retreat from the left and right. When this is said, Wei Yuan thought of Xu Qian'an for no reason. That bastard boy. Wei Yuan stayed in the study for half an hour. No one knew what he said to Emperor Yuan Jing. Accompanied by Gong Lu, Wei Yuan just stepped out of the prison study. Didn't take a few steps, and he heard someone shouting to him. A few Zhang from the military department greeted him. Said with a smile Wei Gong, I don't know the murderer of the Pingyuan Bofa murder case. What kind of demon is it? Wei Yuan shook his head Zhang Shangshu. The case involved Sambo. It is inconvenient to disclose. Wait until the truth is revealed. Lord Shangshu will naturally know. Wei Yuan finished speaking. He strode away. Zhang Shangshu touched a soft nail. It's very helpless. But he didn't dare to get angry in front of Wei Yuan. Wei Gong walked slowly. After Wei Yuan left, the bigwigs who were waiting in the imperial study came slowly. What did father-in-law Lu Wei Yuan say to His Majesty? Gong Lu waved his hand again and again. "Don't embarrass us," said to the capital of the country. Lu Gong picked something that could be said to be convenient. Gong Lu hesitated slightly. Then he nodded, whispered about this case. "It is a gong that beats the yamen of the watchman. Xu Qian'an is doing it." What Wei Yuantu said was all from him. The ministers immediately looked at each other. At the same time, a thought arose in their hearts. It's this Xu Qian'an again. Xu Qian'an, who left the leader. From time to time, the alluring face of the national teacher flashed in his mind. I've heard that women who cultivate the Tao are different. The beauty of the jade carving is like. I couldn't see any flaws on her face. I've got a few pimples. The Earth sect is a second-class hand. The Taoist hand of the human sect must not be bad. Second grade. It's not an exaggeration to say it's a fairy. The little mare under the crotch walked with a clatter. Passing by an equipment hangar, Xu Qian'an asked the guards for the location of the imperial palace. Samboan's investigative thinking must change. Let's not check the North King first. I have a hunch. Just find out about the matter of Hung Hui and the county lord of Pingyang. Find out this bitter couple. Grievances and grievances between uncles and uncles. Samboan may be able to break it. It doesn't take half a month. I feel like it's been a few days. Maybe faster. Daoist Jin Lian will come to me at night. I will remember to ask him. What is the situation of the Taoist hand? It's obviously a Kuan Dao, but it has a magical charm. Xu Qian'an added a family father, urging the horses to run quickly. Soon came to the palace of the royal king. Xu Qian'an showed the gold medal. Identify yourself. This official is the host of the funeral case appointed by His Majesty. I have something to ask to see the king. I'm tired of passing it on for me. The guards see the demon card. Put away his admiration. This, sir. Come with me. The prince of our family wants to see you. The imperial palace covers an extremely large area. Xu Qian'an followed behind the guards. It took 5 minutes to walk from the main entrance to the antechamber. Xu Qian'an met Emperor Yuan Jingdi's younger brother in the front hall. When the prince of the dynasty. This is a young man, but his face was pale. Looks sick. It's only in his early 40s. It looks even older than Emperor Yuan Jing. The Jade King held a cup of tea in his hand. Took a sip. He said in a somewhat breathless voice, "When is the gong?" The Brotherhood granted a gong as the presiding officer. Xu Qian'an arched his hand. Xiaoguan Xu Qian'an. The Jade King hadn't heard of me. Xu Qian'an thought. Sambo case. As the headline of the first hot search list in Beijing today. Up to the princes and nobles. Down to the junior general. Should all keep an eye on him. And as one of the organizers myself, the minions don't know me. The Jade King, who is a member of the clan, doesn't even know me. The Jade King nodded abruptly. Come to think of it, roommates heard about it. However, this king ignores the affairs of the court. I couldn't think of it for a while. Xu Qian'an sighed. It seems that the disappearance of the county lord of Bin Duong hit him hard. The Jade King asked, "What are you looking for this king?" Xu Qian'an said with emotion. Xiaoguan was ordered to investigate the Sambo case. Check it out. It was discovered that this case was actually related to the Jade King. The Jade King shook his head calmly. This king has long since been defeated and retreated. It shouldn't be an attack or slander. Let's talk about what's going on. Su and Chun Xingdao. More than a year ago, there is a monk named Hung Hui in Qinglong Temple, having an affair with a female pilgrim. The two made a private agreement for life. A magic weapon with a sword from Qinglong Temple that can hide the breath. Fled. Because the woman's identity is extraordinary. If you don't carry a ritual weapon to cover your breath, there is no way to escape from the capital. The descending monk is called Hung Hui. The Jade King may not know his name, but I think it's a real woman's. He is your daughter-in-law, the Lord of Pingyang. Bang! The Jade King crushed the blue and white teacup. Nonsense. Bin Duong has been well-read since childhood. How could he elope with a wild monk? Someone dragged this thief down and cut me down. The guards outside the hall rushed in, surrounded Xu Qian'an, but he didn't panic at all, looking at the old father with teeth and claws. I just feel a little emotional. Such news. Whichever father listened will have a mental breakdown. And for the Jade King, it's just an appetizer. After the guards poured in, the Jade King, who was still thunderous a moment ago, suddenly deflated. With a wave of his hand, the guards stepped back. The Jade King smiled bitterly. I'm not surprised. Before Bin Duong's disappearance, I once arranged a marriage for him, but he strenuously objected. He also said that he had someone he liked. How ridiculous! The major event of marriage is the order of the parents. How could he, a woman, make her own decisions? How did he know that others were not deceiving him? He had other plans for him. Xu Qian'an nodded. Although I don't agree with my parents' orders. This set of matchmakers' words. But for this day and age, free love is truly deadly. After all, it can't be like in my time. Separation and merging become a matter of course. I listened to that. Make somebody's blood boil. Slap him in the face. It wasn't long before he disappeared. He must have been abducted by that wild man. That's what I thought. At first, I gritted my teeth with hatred. Hate him shamelessly. Hated him for disgrace to the clan. But the more time passes, the more I miss him. Now I just want him back. Come back to me. Call me father. I don't care about the rest. Xu Qian'an sighed maybe. You'll never see him again. From the conversation between Heng Hui and his distant uncle and sister-in-law that night. It's not hard to hear. Heng Hui is a person who has died once. Heng Hui is still like this. Not to mention the county lord of Pingyang who eloped with him. Xu Qian'an said, I'm here. It's not about revealing the scars of the Jade King, nor is it to inform you. Who is the man who eloped with the lord of Bin Duong? The Jade King was stunned for a moment. Then I got excited. He took 3 steps and made 2 steps to pounce in front of Xu Qian'an. The dagger grabbed the neckline. Angry shouts, you have news of him. Where the hell is he now? Xu Qian'an frowned, looked at him with a displeased face. The Jade King let go of his hands. Taking a step back is a gaffe on the part of the king. If Lord Xu can help this king find him, this king owes you a great favor. It will pay off in the future. Xu Qian'an said in a deep voice, I am here for this matter. Pingyuan Bofu extermination case. Has the prince heard about it? The Jade King was a little surprised. Not yet. Xu Qian'an asked what the relationship between the prince and Pingyuan was like. The Jade King recalled. He is also a member of the Laurel Group. There used to be a lot of correspondence. However, Uncle Pingyuan is also excited, unwilling to resign to the existing rights in their hands. Yuan Guan frowned. Rejected by other nobles. Xu Qian'an nodded. Continued, I heard that the prince almost entered the cabinet. The Jade King paused. His Majesty did have this idea last year. The cabinet is now under Wang Jinwen's domain, although there are other parties and Wei Yuan's balance. But it's just a balance. I have honors behind me. It's the clan again. His Majesty wants to prop me up into the cabinet. Muddy the waters. Xu Qian'an was slightly surprised. Emperor Yuan Jing is very powerful, although he ignores the government all year round. Throw coins at every turn. But Daizheng has been in power for more than 10 years. Still maintains a high degree of control over the imperial court. This power technique can be called perfect. Xu Qian'an asked the prince casually. Now I admire who has benefited the most in the house. The Jade King smiled helplessly. Wang Jinwen, the capital, and Zhang Feng, the secretary of the Ministry of War. That would have been my place. So much has been said. He couldn't hide his fatigue. Xu Qian'an also knew the information he wanted to know. Then he got up and took his leave. The horse's hooves are brisk. This young little mare was first ridden by the second uncle for a few years. Now it is then ridden by Xu Qian'an, although the people above are different. But he didn't feel sad at all. S mood is still docile and happy. Xu Qian'an's mood was not so light. Inferred from the words of the Jade King. The county lord of Pingyang and Hung Hui eloped. Maybe it's a game in itself. I can't handle you. Can't you handle your daughter? People who play politics. What means can't be done? This is a great possibility. Hung Hui's revenge also confirms this. Who could it be? The capital of the king is still Zhongshangshu. Or both. But here's the catch. The struggle between the civilian clique and the Xuangui clique. What does it have to do with the Sambo case and the Demon Clan? In addition to the prospects, who else knows that there is something sealed under Samber? Not good. Hung Hui's next target of revenge is not the capital. It is the book of the military department. Come to think of it, Xu Qian'an was taken aback. He slammed the horse's belly. Ride your horse to the siege as fast as you can. But it was intercepted at the siege pass. Xu Qian'an asked, Wei Gongke was still in the palace. Yu Lin Wei, who was guarding the city, replied, It's been half an hour since I left. Xu Qian'an immediately transferred the dock. All the way out of the imperial city. Galloped through the spacious streets of the inner city for a long time. Finally, saw Wei Yuan's carriage. Duke Wei has something to report. When Wei Yuan heard this, he immediately ordered to stop. Xu Qian'an immediately rode his horse to catch up. Came to the window of Wei Yuan's frame. He said in a low voice, Wei Gong, there is an urgent report for the lowly position. Wei Yuan's curse didn't report to you. When will the intermittent problem be fixed? Something happened again, Xu Qian'an said in a Chun voice. Hung Hui's next goal. It is very likely that it is the book of the military department, or the king's house. If there is an accident between these two people, Wei Gong, you're in trouble. Zhang sighed here. Zhang Feng, the secretary of the military department, returned to Fuzhong in a carriage. Ask the butler who greeted you. Told him to get dressed in a quarter of an hour. See me in the study. The old butler answered. He hurried out, seeing that the old man's face was not very good. He knew something big was going to happen. Zhang Feng returned to the study. Sit on a large chair. Lean back. Close your eyes and refresh yourself. A quarter of an hour is fleeting. Zhang Feng's eldest son, Zhang Yi, came in at a pinching time. After Zhang Feng saw his son coming, so he opened his mouth in a deep voice and cleaned up the softness. Leave the capital immediately. Zhang Yi instinctively wanted to ask why, but I saw Zhang Feng staring at him sharply. Zhang Yi had no choice but to shrink his neck. Obediently went and complied. Soon, Zhang Fu and others came to the gate of the inner city. Who knows that after the soldiers guarding the city gate asked about their identity, I actually stopped them. The butler panted and replied that His Majesty has a will. Officials with more than 6 grades, including family members. No one is allowed to leave the capital. At dusk, in the eldest princess's mansion, Chu Kaiwei, who had a happy day, rode to Su's house. Chu Kaiwei from the deerskin pouch on her waist. Take out 2 defective products. Save some food. Diana bowl is expensive. 2 taels of silver each. Xu Qian's outstretched hand trembled a little. One is half a month's worth of me. Chu Kaiwei is actually an invisible rich woman. At a young age, he had his own airport. And it doesn't matter if you're a loyal disciple or not. I mainly want to bring her up. Xu Qian'an envied this kind of rich second generation, although she has more than 900 taels of gold. But the money was used to buy a house. Come to think of it, he had a demagogic smile on his face. Miss Kaiwei, come in and have a cup of tea. Chu Kaiwei blushed and snorted. The sun was about to set. What is your intention in inviting me to the hospital at this time? After saying that, he turned around and flipped over the little mare, twisting the little ass and walking away. Xu Qian'an snorted angrily. The front is not convex, and the back is not warped. It's ridiculous in a small bottle. Dinner at the main house. Xu Qian'an returned to his small courtyard. Suddenly, he heard a contemptuous cat meow. Then the door was pushed open. An orange cat walked in with graceful steps. Tail. Ba Gao raised Wang Qingqing's cat's eyes and stared at him. Spit words. What did Luo Yuhing say? Xu Qian looked at Jin Lian, who liked cats. Some were speechless. This old silver coin. Is it the door to a new world? Or maybe it's a special fetish. He examined the orange cat. Zhu Yuandan has already been obtained. The orange cat heard this. A humane expression of relief appeared on his face. Wheat Zhu Yuandan. Not in a few days. My cultivation will be restored. Xu Qian was a little surprised. Is the effect of Zhu Yuandan so good? If the Taoist is restored, you can chat privately in the book chat group. Come to think of it, Xu Qian was pleasantly surprised. The colleague asked puzzled, saying that it was all from the Daomen. Why did the Taoist head ask for the elixir from the human sect? Could it be that the emperor is not good at alchemy? The orange cat was silent for a moment. The cost of Zhu Yuandan is about 100 taels of gold, and some medicinal herbs cannot be bought even if they have silver. Xu Qian wanted to laugh. I'm embarrassed to laugh again. It's not that my level of land is poor. It is the other sect that has no humanity. It's a sad story. The orange cat asked if there was anything to be gained today. Xu Qian got the news from the royal palace. In their own reasoning spoken, the orange cat listened with a serious expression. Your analysis is correct. Hung Hui closes. The elopement of the Lord of Pingyang County involved the party and government of the court. It's just that I don't understand. Since Hung Hui is still alive, why don't you come out early or late? It didn't come out until after the Samber case. And with his strength and level, not enough to qualify for the Samber case. Su's wife nodded approvingly. There is also power behind him. I thought that force was the king of Jinbei, if not for the sake of rebellion. So, what is the purpose of releasing the seal? Tossed for a long time. As a result, only one Pingyuan country was destroyed. Dao Chief, did you say that the Jade King did it? Unleash the seal to kill all enemies. The orange cat shook its head at you. Means, the county lord of Bin Duong is dead. The Jade King will avenge you. This is unlikely. If the Jade King knew about it, as his prince, he wants revenge. There is no need to be so extreme. And why do your thoughts always stop at the clan? Xu Qian said dejectedly. The suspicion of the king of Jinbei became lighter and lighter. I'm really a little daughter-in-law in the river. All the work has been lost. If there is no Hung Hui, the seal has been lurking. Xu Qian will retain his suspicion of the king of Jinbei. Thinks that the other party is holding back the big move. But what Monk Hung Hui is doing so far, it really doesn't match the forced nature of the seal. Why don't you try to kill the emperor? However, Xu Qian did not completely give up his doubts. The Sambo case has always been shrouded in fog. He barely saw half of it. The other half. Let Xu Qian open his eyes wide, 24K titanium alloy dog's eyes. I just can't see through it. That's when the orange cat made a point. Poor Dao thinks you may have fallen into a misunderstanding. The king of Jinbei is also good. The king is good too. They're all clansmen. The reason why you doubt them. But because of the seal under Sambo. Only Emperor Yuan Jing knows. But exclude traitorous government and Emperor Yuan Jing. Buddhism also knows. Xu Qian shook his head. Buddhism was one of the dominant ones of the year. After Samber's seal was lifted, the Panshu abbot of Qinglong Temple went west. It can be seen that this is important. The orange cat said in a deep voice. The demon clan is two simple words. Suddenly, it gave Xu Qian an empowerment-like impact. I have always been the main messenger behind the scenes, locked in the range of the royal family. If it is the first superintendent who is sealed, this speculation is reasonable. But if it weren't for the first generation of supervisors, then know about the Sambo seal. It's not just Emperor Yuan Jing and the superintendent and Buddhism. There is another force that I ignore. That's the force to which the seal itself belongs. Sealed for 500 years, it still hasn't been worn out. Definitely an extremely terrible top powerhouse. Such a character would not be a casual cultivator. Could it be a demon clan? This remains to be proven. Xu Qian'an took out the porcelain bottle. Placed next to the orange cat. I saw the national teacher today. It's a little different from what I imagined. The orange cat glanced at him flutteringly. It's not the fairy windbone you think. Xu Qian'an was about to nod. I listened to the orange cat add. It may be more seductive than a presumptuous woman. Let your mouth water. Xu Qian'an turned his head in embarrassment. I just can't help but want to teach someone. Xu Qian'an has seen a lot of beauties. There are beautiful women like ants in the family. A beautiful girl like Lin Yu. And then there is the lively and cute Chu Kai Wei. And the charming and amorous little queen of nightclubs. Princess Huiqing, the cold and arrogant goddess of icebergs. But there has never been an uncontrolled hard ape. Thinking about the color of the banana peel. This can only be a matter of state affairs itself. Come to think of it, Xu Qian'an suddenly said that there was really something wrong with state affairs. The orange cat did not answer positively. Rather, in the form of rhetorical questions. Why do you think Renzong is called Renzong? Why did Luo Yuheng want to be a national soldier? The orange cat paused. Go on. Luo Yuheng is also the daughter of his predecessor Renzong. Xu Qian'an smiled and said to me, what are you doing here? Are you hinting at me? That woman is actually terrible. Xu Qian'an said, as far as I know. In addition to the heavenly sect, the three sects of the sect are ruthlessly sterilized. Both the human sect and the earth sect can be married normally. Does the Taoist have any children? The orange cat shook its head. I thought about it when I was younger. As you get older, feelings are downplayed. As for the love of men and women, it's just vulgar. Sue's wife and woman's bandit are really vulgar. It is still a last resort when people reach middle age. Soak wolfberries in a thermos cup. Sue wife and quipped. The Taoist has been detached from low-level interests. It's really admirable. If only all the men in the world were with you. I'm happy. Late at night, the streets of the inner city resounded with the sound of uniformed footsteps. A dark shadow walked through the inner city. He walked through the streets. It seems that the watchman who does not hide from the patrol, and the imperial sword guard who defended the city. In fact, whenever there is an eye on this, there will always be some obstacle in the way. Sometimes it's a fence. Sometimes it's the eaves. In this way, he came to the ice without danger. Shushu looked up at the plaque. The lower half of his face is exposed. A hideous smile tugged at the corners of Purple Protocol's mouth. The soothing of the gatekeeper was only noticed. Man in black robe. He shouted and drew a stone-throwing knife. The black-robed man raised his right arm under the cloak. The bright red skin highlights the hideous blood vessels. It's like the devil's arm. He pointed his palms at soothing. Suddenly I shook it. Bang! Soothing and turning into chicken powder. In the military department's Shangshu mansion. Suddenly, there were sounds of panic and shouts. The black-robed man was no longer in front of him. He strode into the Shangshu mansion of the Ministry of War. But the moment he entered the Shangshu mansion, the surroundings changed suddenly. The black-robed man's cloak turned his face slightly in fright. Examine your surroundings. He appeared in a desolate mountainous area. There wasn't even a single weed around. At this time, someone said lightly, I am in the military department. The teleportation formation was arranged. The black-robed man asked in a hoarse voice. Who are you? The man in white said in the capital. There are people who don't know who I am. Man, you managed to get my attention. The black-robed man turned around. I saw a man in white standing more than a dozen feet away. Fluttering figure. It was facing away from him. Extraordinary. Long hair and white clothes flying. It gives people an extraordinary sense of déjà vu. The black-robed man snorted coldly. Raise your right arm and gently shake it towards the man in white. There was a bang in front of us. The gas engine is exploding. The figure of the man in white dissipated like a reflection in the water. The man in white appears in another. The direction was still facing away from the black-robed man. You think I'm there? Actually, I'm here. The black-robed man frowned. 4-rank warlock. Even the 4 products dare to stop me. The man in white repeated in a low voice. These few words. Then he exclaimed that it was well said. Very bold words. It inspired me tremendously. There is a pause. Only then did he smile and say that he was just a 4th-grade martial artist. It is also worthy to watch the fire from the other side in front of me. The black-robed man was stunned. I don't know what he meant, but soon he knew. There are 4 places in the east, west, north, and south. Each appeared a watchman with a golden gong embroidered on his chest. At this moment, there was a click. At some point, rows of repeating bed crossbows appeared. Self-winding. On the right are small artillery pieces. Crossbow bolts and cannonballs are fired at the same time. The result is a man in a black robe. Artillery fire exploded next to the black-robed man. In an instant, his figure was submerged. After a long time, the smoke and dust dissipated. The black-robed man raised his right arm unhurriedly. By this time, the cloak had been reduced to pieces. The true body of the black-robed man was revealed. The man in white, who always holds his back to the person, said in surprise, "Copper skin and iron bones." At this time, 4 golden gongs shot at the same time. Sharp gun intent and sword intent erupted. Be the first to attack the black-robed man. The black-robed man clasped his hands together. A Buddha name was recited. The Buddha said that compassion is cherished. Hearing this, the golden gongs hesitated. But after an instant it returned to normal. The black-robed man took advantage of this critical gap. Continuously pat your right arm. Defeated a gun that could not be dodged and unstoppable. And the sword shadow that pierces everything. White-clad warlock. Keep a distance from them. The mouth is constantly sighing. A bunch of useless martial artists. It's up to you. Grandpa me. The white-clad warlock stomped on the ground. Speak loudly. Killing patterns spread from the soles of his feet. Include the warriors who are fighting. The devastated ground suddenly shook, condensed into a terrible thing. The white-clad warlock then means the firmament. Lang said that the sky was killed. Suddenly dark clouds rolled in the night sky, one after another ejection. In the end, the warriors killed. As the words of the white-clothed warlock fell, the topography of heaven and earth and the power of people are condensed into one. Towards the black-robed man. Put him in a situation where the world is the enemy. That hideous and terrifying right arm seemed to be stimulated. Active recovery. An indescribably terrifying burst of coercion. The protruding blood vessels lit up. The handsome monk laughed. Then he clenched his fist. Bang! The sound of the gas engine exploding engulfed everything. The shock wave turned into a frenzy and spread in ripples. Each of the 4 golden gongs uses different means of defense. Leverage your strength. Drift into the distance. Don't dare to be in the center of the explosion. Wait for everything to be calm. The figure of the black-robed man has long been lost. The white-clad warlock suddenly appeared. With his back to the crowd, he asked what this guy was about. I'm referring to that arm. The golden gong with the sword asked rhetorically. The white-clad warlock said, as far as I observed, that arm wasn't his. The demonic aura is terrifying. It's my life's vigilance. Anxiously staring at the back of the white-clad warlock. As far as you observe, from start to finish. This thing is obviously always facing away from everyone. Zhang Luzhong didn't have a good airway. Miriam Yang, your eyes. Elders. Miriam Yang was proud. Before he left, I peeked back. Zhang Luzhong said helplessly, can you turn around and talk well? You weren't like this before. Miriam Yang said proudly. Let me refuse. Yang does whatever he wants. Don't care what anyone thinks. After saying that, he explained, I carefully observed the supervisor and weigh you on. Didn't you notice? One of them always likes to stand at the lookout, with their backs to you. One always likes to sit on the gossip table with his back to us, and we will feel that way Yuan and the teacher are different. Often has a superior demeanor. Four-dimensional Jinlua's face suddenly darkened. They all have the urge to hit someone. Jiang Yuzhong shook his head. Back to business. So it seems, according to the information currently available, that hand was the seal under Sambo. Yang Qian'an frowned. The seal under the Sampo. He had just returned to Beijing the day before yesterday. Today, I came over on behalf of Xu Qian'an. Help mob a fanatic. Dao also knew that Yongzhen Shana Temple was bombed a while ago, but he didn't pay much attention. As everyone knows, warlocks only need to enter the alchemy room and the alchemy laboratory. As long as the meals can be delivered on time, they can go 10 years without going out. Said with a golden gong with a sword. That monk is probably Hung Hui. Jiang Lu said in the middle. If you can catch him, you can know the whereabouts of the county lord of Pingyang. Yang Qian'an had a question mark. Listen to the conversation between you and me. I'm getting more and more curious. Lord of Bin Duong. The Lord of Bin Duong, who disappeared more than a year ago. Yang Qian'an remembers. When the county lord disappeared, for 4 days, the operating room was almost dispatched by the Qing dynasty. There was a lot of commotion. Hear, hear. He couldn't hold back any longer. Turning his back to him, he asked, It's only been a few days since the Sambo case happened. You beat the people. The case was investigated so clearly. Wait a minute. Why didn't I hear from C. Tianjin's juniors? Don't tell me you didn't ask them to help with the case. You don't have such a strong ability to fight people and handle cases. It stands to reason. Sambo, such a big case. It was impossible for the warlock of Si Tian Sword not to tell him. After all, Si Tianjin often assists the imperial court in handling cases. The exchange of information between internal groups is common. But Miriam Yang. I haven't heard of Hung Hui and Pingyang County Lord at all. Yang Yin said rarely. We didn't even send out the golden gong. The case was handled by a mediocre gong. Miriam Yang didn't turn around. Psychological pay. It's none of your business. Why are you so smug in tone? Then he asked rhetorically. What a gong. Talk to me about it. Zhang Mijong said, You should know this gong. Because he is very famous in Si Tianjin. His name is Xu Qian'an. Miriam Yang's voice instantly rose a few points. He knows Xu Qian'an. As soon as he returned to Si Tianjin, he knew this person. He even gave a lecture to his juniors and disciples. Unexpectedly, the Sambo case was also handled by him. Looks pretty good. It's out of the limelight again. It seems to be a fierce rival. Nangong Chinro hated what was the origin of that arm. Miriam Yang shook her head and didn't know. But his master is definitely above the second grade. I don't know much about the five-husband system. Of course, I don't bother to understand. His tone was deep, like a bottomless and lonely swordsman. The Kinros thought to themselves, This man has been away from menstruation for several months. The condition is getting worse. This side of Shifu. Xu Qian had just arrived in the front yard. I heard the ghost crying wolf howl of little doubting. Su Lingyue's eyes lit up. Turning his head, he said excitedly, Big brother. Closed for today. Xu Qian scratched his cheeks, a little embarrassed. I overslept. At this time, little doubting ran over with his little short legs. Rub it and jump up. Hugged Xu Qian's legs. Then he said indignantly about the cauldron. Cauldron, they robbed me of chicken legs. They even grabbed the chicken legs of children. Xu Qian looked at his aunt and sister-in-law so excessively. Annie snorted. It looks like he's too lazy to explain. Su Lingyue said helplessly last night. Lin Yin had one chicken leg left. She didn't want to eat it and took it back to the house. I woke up this morning to find that the chicken leg was missing. She thought it was me and my mother who stole the chicken legs. Xu Qian squatted down, comforted that the eldest brother is the best at solving cases. Big brother calls the shots for you. Little Doubting was very happy when he heard it. I think Big brother is the best. in addition to liking to rob him of food. Su Lingyue said, I asked the maid who took care of him. The maid said that Lingyin got up in the middle of the night and ate it. But he didn't believe it at all. Xu Qian lowered his head and asked, Have you eaten? Little Doubting shouted that I didn't. Su Lingyue continued. The maid said he ate it with his eyes closed. We found the chicken leg at the head of his bed. The bones are gnawed clean. It's his way of eating. Xiao Doubting couldn't accept the chicken leg that he was reluctant to eat. It's the fact that you eat it yourself. The cauldron must have been eaten by my sister. Sister lied. Xu Qian said helplessly. The eldest brother already knows who eats it. Little Doubting's eyes burst with anticipation. Who? Xu Qian'an said that it was eaten by your mouth. But your brain doesn't know. Come to think of it, Xu Qian'an said in a deep voice, it's a ghost. Little Bean Ding was taken aback. I'm so scared that the pronunciation is not standard. Dead ghost. Annie is a little unhappy. Don't scare the child. Then he said to the young girl, Sprinkle with salt. Fry in oil. Better than chicken thighs. Xiao Doubting listened. Showed a look of fear and yearning. Finish breakfast. Su Qian rode to the yamen. Song Tingfeng, said Ning Yen. Wei Gonggang sent someone to ask you to go to Haoqi Tower. Su Qian said, You didn't say I was late. Nicholas Su turned his head. Don't dare to look at Su Qian. I said you were playing in the hut. Su Qian nodded. Then he turned around and went to Haoqi building. Su Qian walked quickly to the top floor. I just wanted to open my mouth to worship. I was taken aback by the scene in front of me. Except for Wei Yuan in the tea room. There are also 4 Jin Luo. They all had wounds on their bodies. The scene is both absurd and comical. A dignified high-frequency martial artist. It's like a bunch of hooligans who have lost a group fight. Some are depressed. Su Qian turned his head. I couldn't help but laugh. Nangong Qianro said angrily. What are you laughing at? Su Qian tried to hold back a smile. I just don't admit that I'm not laughing. At this time, Wei Yuan beckoned Su Qian to come over last night. Heng Hui appeared. The target is the military department. Shang Shu Su Qian put away his playful expression. Turned serious. Those golden gongs. Wei Yuan nodded. It was Heng Hui who was injured. Last night, the yamen was in the military department's Shangshu Mansion and Shofu Mansion. Set up a bureau of 4 golden gongs. Plus Miriam Yang, the 3rd disciple of the government. The 5 4th-grade masters did not leave Heng Hui. Su Qian was both shocked and not shocked by this ending. 5 4th-grade masters went into battle together, which he didn't expect. Not shocked, but feel the seal under Sambo. That's how it should be. Why, Su Qian asked. What the way to come? Do you see it clearly? Zhang Luzhong replied that it was a severed hand. Su Qi chuckled in his heart. Sure enough, it was the strange hand. He looked at Wei Yuan and Wei Gong. This is superb, Wei Yuan said in a deep voice, at least the 2nd grade. Su Qi thought with peace of mind. There is a hand. That's what it is. What kind of realm should the master be? At least 2 grades, but it's probably a product. Otherwise it can't be a seal. And not extermination. Su Qian guessed what the seal was about. Is it related to the demon clan? Wei Yuan declined to be revealed. There was a great deal of secrecy involved. I don't know the specifics. Su Qian thought. A severed hand. A strong man. Si Tianjin and the royal family were involved, as well as Buddhism. It also involves the history of 500 years ago. He glanced at the golden Roman. Try to see a clue in their eyes. It's a pity. Kinraman ignored the observation of the little gong. Wei Yuan said gently. Heng Hui has a magic weapon on his body that shields his breath. What is certain at the moment is that he is not out of the city. I have made the situation clear to your majesty this morning. You continue to check yours. Su Qian understood the hint of the eunuch. Then he asked the secretary of the military department. Wei Yuan said that he was under house arrest in the name of protection. Su Qi comprehended with peace of mind. Humble will go and investigate. Wei Yuan mentioned that Zhang Shangshu is a second-grade member form. Be careful. 4 or more shall not be used. It's the rule. But you can still bring a warlock. Xu Qian'an instantly understood what Wei Yuan meant. That's to say, although the warlock's accusations cannot be used as evidence, but can provide me with a reference. Xu Qian'an before leaving. He glanced at Kim Romaine, who was full of frustration. He laughed again, and then before the golden gongs get angry, ran out of the tea room like a runaway. Zhang Luzhong exhaled a breath of turbidity. Said angrily, "This bastard boy. It's getting bolder." Jin Gong with a sword laughed. "I don't have the courage to cut my superiors." Zhang Luzhong sighed and said, "It's a pity that Yang Yin is cheaper. You don't know the kid's qualifications." But that's not the end of the story. Wei Yuan interrupted him. "Just your mouth." Zhang Luzhong immediately closed his voice and became silent. The golden gong with the sword raised his eyebrows. Asked how about the qualifications? What ratings? Could it be a fake? Zhang Luzhong ignored Jin Luo, who used the sword. Sharply raised the decibel of the sound. "It's not fake, it's fake." He turned his head instead. Stared straight at Wei Yuan. Wei Gong just drank tea and was silent. This gesture made this Jin Luo more and more curious. He started Lenovo Class A qualifications. "Don't hide it from me. Is it really fake?" "No way. Fake Shang's qualifications haven't been passed for decades." "But their attitude, doesn't that just verify this?" "If so, there's no reason why I shouldn't fight for the causeway. But it depends on what Wei Gong means. I'm afraid to hide it is to avoid the golden gong. Because of the robbery of people, there is strife. I can plot in secret, win people over. Isn't it the silver and women that young people value?" Yang Yin, who was paralyzed, took the initiative to speak. Divert the topic. What is the attitude of his father's side? Wei Yuan sighed. Find out Heng Hui's whereabouts as soon as possible. During the inspection period. Even if it's me. I can't resist a large number of impeachments. The 4 Jin Luo showed serious expressions. Duke Wei was forced to say this. The situation is very serious. The 5th class must do its best. Wei Yuan nodded. Don't just talk about it. Recently, there has been a message in the court. Said that Jin Luo in the Yamen was one by one. If you don't use it, you can do things by a gong. Yang Yin and Nangong Chinro glanced at each other. They all saw each other's thoughts. The father-in-law attaches more and more importance to Xu Qian'an. This must be done well. Find out the cross-meeting as soon as possible. Fortunately, Xu Qian'an couldn't do this kind of errand. I'm not worried. The small gong jumped out again to attack. Xu Qian'an arrived at the military headquarters with the Sambo case team, on the comfort to show the gold medal. After the disembarkation of the boat, he took Chu Kaiwei and Li Yuchen and other 3 lewd demons. And Lu Qin, the chief catcher of the 6 gates, entered the Shangshu mansion. Enter the house. Lu Qin sighed in a low voice that Shangshu mansion was really magnificent. This set of houses can get 10,000 taels of silver. The leader of the subordinates heard the words. Sneered. 10,000 taels of silver. I haven't seen the earthly buns in the world. 10,000 taels of silver also want to buy our Shangshu mansion. Vulgar Takeo. Xu Qian'an kicked him in the ass. Scolded, lead the way. The dog minion lowered his head. Hurry up your pace. Speaking of dog minions, 3 words. Xu Qian'an remembered the watch of the little queen of the nightclub. I don't know if she provoked Princess Huiqing today. Then he was chased and beaten by the latter. Xu Qian'an met Zhang Feng, the secretary of the Ministry of War, in the living room. She sat there silent. It reveals the majesty of a long, high position. Xu Qian'an hugged his fists and saw Lord Shangshu. Zhang Feng gently shook his hands and listened to the father-in-law in the palace. Lord Xu handled the case quickly. Extraordinary. Not only is the Samber case progressing rapidly, the real culprit of the Pingyuan Immortal Door case was also found. Xu Qian felt that there was something in the other party's words. The humble Dao Shangshu is out of prison. Zhang Shangshu nodded slightly. You're trying to ask what the official has to do with the murderer. Was actually sought revenge by the other party late at night. Xu Qian didn't expect the other party to be so cooperative. It was Zhang Shangshu. Suddenly he was stingy, slapped the table, and shout angrily. The official also wants to know. The official wants to know more. It has been 10 days since Pinji Wambo's murder. Why hit the more people? The assailant has not been caught yet. The official also wants to know. Why hit the more people again and again? Again and again, the gangsters were allowed to commit murder. Xu Qian frowned. It's not easy to mess with. As soon as he came up, he gave me a dismount. As soon as Xu Qian came up, he ate a dismount. He had no choice but to clench his fists and say, Lord Shangshu. Angry, Zhang Shangshu restrained his expression. There was a sigh. I have not been to court today, but also know the follow-up to last night's situation. Unexpectedly, 5 Takahira Takashi worked together. Still haven't taken the other side. Instead, for golden gongs were injured. The watchman was loyal to the imperial court. The official naturally saw it in his eyes. It's a pity that adultery is seriously ill. Can't make a shot. It makes us afraid. Kill Del and others are exhausted. His expression had the face of a superior person. The tone was quite gentle. Be considerate of your subordinates. It makes people feel good for no reason. Xu Qian actually had a slight impression of the military department's Shangshu. But soon he returned to the future. Speak your mouth and give me a horse. Knock it out. The next moment the attitude reversed. Gain empathy, and make people unconsciously feel grateful for being recognized. People who can play politics to the second grade. It's not that easy. Xu Qian coughed, cleared his throat. Investigate the real culprit of the Dao Pingyuan Bo murder case. It is the same person who attacked Shengshufa last night. He is a monk of Qinglong Temple. The law name is Heng Hui. The military department Shangshu frowned. Heng Hui. Don't you know this person? Why did he attack the mansion at night? He is a monk of Qinglong Temple. Why didn't Lord Su go to the people of Qinglong Temple? Come to the official house. Su's wife, Anshin, said in a favorable voice. Just a monk. Naturally, it is not worth knowing Lord Shangshu. Just over a year ago, he eloped with a female pilgrim. There has been no news since. The female pilgrim was the Lord of Bin Duong. Zhang Feng looked shocked. Can't seem to believe it. Lord of Bin Duong. Lord of Bin Duong. The realm is Su Qi who eloped with someone, and kept an eye on him. I want to analyze the other person's real thoughts through micro-expressions, but failed. There are no flaws at all. Xu Qian intends to shift the target. Zhang Yizhang's son. But when Zhang Feng sent someone to invite him, dark circles under the eyes, Zhang Yi, who had a very bad complexion, came to the reception hall. Su Qi's peace of mind is not your dark circles, and Song Qing can compete. Come to think of it, Xu Qian asked Zhang Gongzi. You know a monk named Heng Hui? Zhang Yi sat on the chair with her ass. The larynx is raised high. A look of disdain for the company of ears. Said I don't know. Xu Qian asked again, do you know Heng Qing? Zhang Yi at this moment. I didn't bother to answer Xu Qian's questions. Just shook his head and forgot about it. Xu Qian then asked if you know Heng Yuan. Again, the answer is no. At this time, Xu Qian's voice was a little deeper. You know Bin Duong. Zhang Yi subconsciously wanted to say that he didn't know. But he reacted in an instant. The county lord of Pingyang. This is naturally recognized. Xu Qian's face showed displeasure. This thing is completely perfunctory. However, Xu Qian still smiled politely. I'm done. Thank you Zhang Shangshu and Zhang Gongzi for their cooperation. Leave Shengshufu. Xu Qian asked Chu Kaiwei. During the questioning just now, which words are true? Which words are false? The egg-faced Chu Kaiwei rolled her eyes. Not a word of truth. Xu Qian was stunned for a moment. Who are you talking about? Chu Kaiwei pursed her lips and said that both father and son are. That's right, and the last sentence is true. The guy with the kidney loss said that he knew the county lord of Pingyang. Su Qi chuckled with peace of mind. Zhang Feng opened his eyes and said, nonsense. I can understand it. But why is Zhang Yi also lying? Then there is only one possibility. Zhang Yi participated in the elopement of the county lord of Henghui and Pingyang. Imagine if Zhang Yi was not in the know. Then Zhang Feng has no reason to put this kind of thing. Secrets were revealed to him. Sometimes, unknowingness is the best protection. And in the image of Zhang Feng's time management master, obviously not very reliable. If I were Zhang Shangshu, definitely not with unreliable people. Mention cases that may be destroyed. Even if he's my son. Interestingly, that night, Hung would kill Ping Yuan's uncle's sister-in-law. I'm here to collect the debt. Xu Qian suddenly cheered up. The case is getting more and more confusing. It's getting more and more interesting. I feel like I'm getting close to the truth. The truth about the elopement case of Henghui and the Lord of Pingyang County. Figured it out. Only then can the Sambo case continue to be investigated. It's been a busy day. When you were out of service, Xu Qian said goodbye to Chu Kaiwei and Lu Qin. After the two left, Xu Qian sneakily entered the teaching division. Call it by fine-sounding name of. For many days, there has been a high-intensity investigation of the case. Xu Qian felt the need to relax, relieve mental stress. It's all sleep anyway. There is not much difference between sleeping at home and sleeping on a Fuxiang bed. In addition, Fuxiang sent messages many times to say that he missed him very much. I want to invite him to Yin Mei's little brother for tea. That being the case, Xu Qian thought about it. So let's make an appointment. At this time, Song Tingfeng said, I plan to sleep with Qing officials. Xu Qian's sincere suggestion. It is not cost-effective to sleep with officials. The price is a bit high. The generous Qing officials are not really selling their arts. Qingwan is more like a hype. There are more than just adult women in the temple. There are also many girls. The girls were taught singing and dancing skills as well as costumes. Men's skills are slowly cultivated and raised. The posture and skills are average. Acts as a low-level maiko singer. Those with good posture and good skills are clean officials. Wait for the fame of Qing officials to accumulate to a certain extent. There is a seafood auction that invigorates men's hearts. Nicholas' song is very calm. I said it all. A man like me is not suitable for a wife and children. There is no point in keeping the silver. It's not for nothing that Nicholas' song thinks so. However, the price of the tea in the floating fragrance yard is too high. And Oiran is Xu Qian's good friend. He stayed in the Plum Shadow Pavilion. It can only be said that it is you. Zhu Guangxiao said concisely. I'm going to marry a daughter-in-law. Soon the three parted ways. Xu Qian entered the teaching division. Suddenly, he heard someone behind him shouting his name. This is Su Gongzi. Xu Qian was taken aback. Visiting the Qinglu was recognized by acquaintances. He cursed in his heart. While turning around, the handsome young man bowed, smiled charmingly, and said, Su Gongzi. My bright girl wants to invite her son to tea. Xu Qian searched in his mind for a moment. Do you know who this bright girl is? It's also an Oiran. The big Oiran who is famous for his martial arts. It is of the same grade as the previous floating incense. Learn to dance. As everyone knows, the effects of dance and yoga are the same. Xu Qian's eyes lit up slightly, said with a smile. The smile on the face of the beautiful young man who led the way suddenly bloomed. Su Gongzi, come with me. This way, please, this side, please. At this time, there is no little brother. The door was about to come out to greet Xu Qian's little gatehouse. See this scene? His face changed slightly. Open his mouth. I wanted to redeem Su Gongzi and his colleagues who scolded him for digging the foot of the wall. But on second thought, his status is not enough to meddle in this matter. I can't say that it will annoy Xu Gongzi. He gritted his teeth. Closing the door, he hurriedly ran into the yard. Several sisters. Big things are not good. Xu Gongzi was snatched away. It's right outside the courtyard gate. Gave the little four in Mingyin's yard to snatch it halfway. The maids exploded in an instant. What? This little ladder dares to rob the man of Our Lady. Inside Fuka's boudoir. The maid who served him squatted on the edge of the bed and helped him massage. The lady has been in a trance recently. Not too happy either. Are you thinking about Xu Gongzi? Fuka shook her head. Just a stinky man. I guess what he does. The maid snickered. Then why do you always let me go outside every night to make tea? Asked Xu Gongzi if he was here. Fuxiang frowned. Pointing to the fruit bowl, he said that all men in the world are virtuous. It's like sugar cane. It was sweet at first. The sweetness makes people's hearts melt. But you will find out when you eat it. Finally, a mouthful of slag. The maid smiled. Even if it was scum, it's really sweet when it's sweet. When you spend time with her every night. That's called a hearty one. Fuxiang pursed her lips. Ask what you think of the snow wolf. The maid smiled very well. Every night I toss the lady and is tired. I tremble when I walk. Fuxiang's face turned red. It flicked lightly on the little girl's forehead. Don't you think she's different from other men? The maid makes memories and bumps into the approval list. Is gentler than other men. There is no such arrogant attitude that looks down on us. But when I stare at the lady's breasts. But it's not much cleaner than the men outside. Fuka didn't care. Are these men? Recently, the Department of Teaching and Workshop has circulated half a sentence of 7 words. The level of stunningness is not bad. The shadow is sparse, and the water is shallow. It is said to have come from the palace. The maid nodded. I heard from the guests who came to play the tea party. It was done by the princes and princesses who made wine orders. I just don't know which prince has such talent. At this moment, a maid hurriedly ran in. Said the lady a little coquettishly. Xu Gongzi came just now. Fong Si Fuxiang nodded. I don't really care. Leak hospitality. Let him wait outside. I hadn't seen this man for almost a decade. Before the flower, when the moon went down, he called him Brittany. After the excitement passed, he was left out in the cold. It's just a man. I can't worry about him. But the maid shook her head again and again. Xu Gongzi was snatched away by the traitors of Mingyin Yangtze's people. Now I have gone to someone's yard. Pu Xiang stood up suddenly, with disbelief on his face also. Unwilling to believe him, willow eyebrows are upside down, gritted his teeth and said to someone, let's go to the bluestone courtyard to change clothes. Inside the elegant police station, Su Weifan smiled, admiring the appearance of the 5 Oiran. She wears a goose-yellow gauze dress. Dressing up is not conservative. It's not gaudy and tacky. He has clear eyes, pointed jaw, for the sake of years of martial arts. Let her have a share with the other women of the church division. There is no jitter. The spirit is bright. The voice is gentle. The slave family has been paying attention to Xu Gongzi for a while. It's a pity that Xu Gongzi is stupid when he comes to the teaching workshop. Shadow beauty. Xiao Gu can be regarded as a chance for me to seize today. Xu Qian'an said with a smile. Are you afraid of the abrupt beauty? He was calculating in his heart. This Oiran is of the same level with floating incense. At the beginning, the floating incense was worth 30 taels of silver. 1 night of spring supper. This one should be about the same, and that's not counting the money that hit Chavi. I don't have that much money with me today. There's a lot of gold. It's just that she can't be used as currency in circulation. At this time, a small driver hurriedly ran in. The lady is here. We can't stop it. Mingyan raised her eyebrows. Smiling, Ying said, it seems that Fuxiang has a deep love for the sun. It is considered to be forbidden. Xu Qian also raised his eyebrows. This statement may seem like a compliment at first glance. If you take a closer look, you're actually sowing discord, regarded as imprisoned by a dusty woman. In the eyes of men in this era, it's not a glorious thing. Xu Qian'an took a sip of wine. I didn't feel unhappy or bored. Different groups of people, different attitudes. A school-like girl. Isn't it normal to be on the outside? How can a few brushes survive in such a place? To say where these the heaviest. The emperor's harem. It is a well-deserved industry leader. Just thinking about it, Fuxiang had already brought the maid in. The Oiran lady had a calm face. I heard that Su Lang is here. Ask Fongsin and his family to also want to join in the fun. And Miss Ming Yin together to serve Xu Qian'an. Yin secretly gasped. This speaks horizontally. Awesome. Coming to Jinqiyuan is not a tear for Xingshi to ask for guilt. It's about serving together. Both declared the sovereign beating of the bright Oiran. Can also please Qian. Just ask. What man doesn't want to be served by two Oirans at the same time? Ming Yin pulled a warm smile. Why bother my sister to come over on purpose? I whispered something to Su Gongzi. My sister came. I'm embarrassed to say it. It's just that the floating incense is not heard at all. One walked sideways. Ming Yin naturally sat beside Xu Qian. Su Lang has been busy with official business recently. Xu Qian saw the Oiran snuggling over. Wrap your arms around the little fairy's waist. Fuka said softly that later. Reflection Mei Xiaoga. The slave rubs your shoulders for you. Press on the acupuncture points. Bright and obscene teeth are bitten. I can't wait to take a broom and drive this stinky woman out of the door. She got a big bargain herself. Become a famous prostitute who spreads far and wide. It's time to be content. The truth ties men to their side. Don't give a piece of the pie to the sisters in the temple. The sound of footsteps hurried again. It's still the same silk from before. She had a strange look on her face. Whisper lady. Several Oirans came. Ming Yin and Fuxiang exclaimed at the same time. What at this time? A group of people dressed up and showcased. But the high-quality mermaid that does not show the charm of the consistent milk. Some of them are charming and amorous. Some demons are also enthusiastic. Some are as subtle as everyone's ladies. Some are as weak as Daiyu's sister. There are a variety of styles. A total of 7 people. But regardless of the figure or appearance, can be called top-notch beauties. Xu Qian now only has 4 words left in his mind. The young model really wants to take a photo and send it to the circle of friends. Fuxiang and Ming Yin were angry to death. I can't wait to go up and scratch the faces of this group of bewitching sluts. But because of identity, they have to be hypocritical. Warm hospitality for a few Oiran. There is no room for so many people in the hall. The bright Oiran invited everyone. Go outside to the hall. Arrange for maids. Serve food and wine. Su wife and sat down, looking at the long-lost Oiran talking and laughing relaxedly. It's like she's a good sister. In fact, all of them are hypocritical. From time to time, he cast his eyes on Xu Qian. The fact that they are competing in the shadows is exposed. It's all human spirits, hungry for Xu Qian's body. At this time, a talented female Oiran smiled and said with a smile, Do you know, in the end, I don't know that the sky is in the water. The night boat dreams and presses the galaxy. This half sentence is 7 words. The Oiran came alive all at once. Yin Yin said, I know. What a beautiful sentence. It is said that it is still circulated in the palace. The talented girl Oiran sweated slightly. Then you know who did it. The Oiran's eyes lit up. Chi Brush looked at her. I knows. The talented Oiran shook her head. I don't know, but I know something else. There is nothing in the faculty division. Fuka's attention was also drawn to the past. The eyes are shining. The corners of his mouth unconsciously hooked up with a smile. Xu Qian had seen this expression. Last life, when a girlfriend and girlfriend talk about luxury bags. That's pretty much the same thing. Xu Qian came to the workshop division for another purpose. It is to observe the amount of qi here up close. Hunt down demon enterprises. Hung Hui has appeared. 2 killings in the inner city. to say that there are no demons lurking in the city. He was unlucky. Hung Hui is obviously the knife of the demon clan, using him for some purpose. The demon clan painstakingly released the seal. Definitely will not let Hung Hui who come. Replace it with me. I'm sure I'm going to keep an eye on Hung Hui. Last time, I observed a demon enterprise in the workshop division. If only it was once in a while. If not, Department of Teaching. It is very likely to be one of the strongholds where the demon clan is lurking. Xu Qian's eyes were clear. He set his eyes on the Qingdakine temple, which was close in front of him. Throw yourself at the sake brewery where the Oiran is. The emerald green aura. Wrapping up Nana. It's like green smoke. Now Xu Qian almost couldn't hold back his foul mouth. My heart suddenly cooled. The demon clan is in the house. I was drinking with myself just now. Which one is the demon clan? Someone in the Oiran. It's still a maid. It can't be a floating fragrance anyway. I've slept with him so many times. He can't be from the demon clan. And I had already seen him that day when I observed the demonic energy. Xu Qian jumped off the wall silently. When the door of the sake house is not closed tightly. He peered through the crack in the door. He saw the woman who exuded a green demonic aura. Not one of the Oiran. It's the personal servant of the bright Oiran. Xu Qian instantly began to think. Why? Last time, I led Nicholas Song and others to play multiplayer sports. He didn't find anything when he observed the demonic energy. Did you use any method to shield the demonic energy at that time? What is the purpose of him lurking beside Ming Yan? Ming Yan is not necessarily innocent. Maybe it's the same party of the demon clan. Think of it this way. As soon as I entered, I called fonts. So he sent for me. It's not just trying to slap me in. Xu Qian immediately made a decision. He climbed over the wall again and left the Blue Pond Temple. Went straight to the small courtyard where Nicholas Song was. Xu Qian broke in all the way. At the door of the master bedroom, I heard the sound of the old Song dynasty piercing the road on the night of his birthday. The sound in the room suddenly stopped. Then came Nicholas Song's vigilant voice. Who? Xu Qian patted the door. It's me coming out soon. There was something urgent, and Nicholas Song scolded dirty. The disheveled door opened and came out. Xu Qian made a long story short. Lao Song now immediately returned to the Yamen to inform the Golden Gong on duty. Let him come and do it himself. Tell Fong Si to tell him that there is a demon clan in Qingxi Temple. Remember that you must let the Golden Gong come over. I don't know much about forgetting Qi. I can't figure out the strength of the other party. There are 9 Oiran in Kaiwai Kingarden. They are all in Mianyang. There is no ability to protect themselves. By the way, if the person holding the hand is surnamed Zhu, you will change your route and go to the private heavenly prison to find Song Qin. Song Tingfeng's face became more and more solemn. The dissatisfaction and annoyance just now vanished in an instant. Xu Qian quickly returned to Qingxi Garden. Beauty, I'm back. He just glanced at it with his peripheral eyes and lowered his eyebrows. A banshee who pours wine for her own lady. At present, I can't figure out the strength of the other party. Xu Qian didn't dare to make a move without permission. Let the other party run away or second. Hurting an innocent Oiran is something she doesn't want to see. It's time to eat next. Touch what should be drunk and touched. Xu Qian and the Oiran fight wine. The dice of the torture and drinking order are very enjoyable. Who's more rounded with ass balls? Who has softer breasts? Who has the most slender waist? Who is made of water? Clear. At this time, the banshee glanced up at Xu Qian. It's late at night. Ladies go back early. Is Su Gongzi resting here at my lady tonight? The good atmosphere was destroyed in an instant. One by one, the Oirans retracted their smiles. A moment ago, it was still hello and my good sister. The next moment, it seemed to be a women's army about to go to war. Ming Yin said a few sisters. Since Su Lang is here today, I Qingxi Garden. I cheekily left him to rest. I hope it's convenient for my sisters. Will the Orin be convenient? Of course not. There is no sisterhood in the temple. Even if there is, it's plastic. But this is an opportunity for Xu Qian'an. If they stay here, just get your hands dirty. Under the shock of opportunity. All have to die. Let's be honest. Xu Qian'an still enjoys the pleasure of this in true scripture. I want to come to the goddesses of the previous life to raise spare tires. That's how I feel. Xu Qian'an coughed. The bright girl is very gracious. Then I'll be here tonight. Let's go back first. The Japanese officials visited them one by one. Word. There is an Oiran who is not happy. He muttered quietly. The words of a man at the table are the same as those on the bed. They are unbelievable. But the Lord has spoken. What else can they do? This is a mandatory. Not coming. Only Fuxiang looked at Xu Qian'an with a sad face. I want to cry. Xu Qian'an didn't have a good breath. You go back first. I'll come back to you tomorrow. Fuka looked at him deeply. Hide your face and be angry. Ran out. Bright Orin looked excited. Boom got up, said shyly. It was not early. Su Gongzi came with the slave family. Enter the boudoir of the bright girl. The room burned with smokeless thin gold size. Sandalwood curls. The banshee saluted his wife. Obedient slaves and maids serve. Child baths. Sue's wife is relieved to be negative. Rest there. I don't dare let you serve me. She glanced at the bright Oiran. Said when he was an Mei's little brother. It's all Fuxiang who serves me. Mingyan's face flushed. Bathed together. She had never had this experience as an Oiran. For a moment it was shy and embarrassing. Bright silver bud bite. He said softly, I'm here to serve Mr. Su. You don't like the fragrant mandarin duck bath. Look at this and skip it. Xu Qian'an wanted to scold his mother. Dog Day Song Nicholas has not yet come. Mingyan lay on her side on the bed. There was some small upset. Said Su Gongzi. What are you waiting for? She's a woman. Some words are hard to say. Otherwise, it will seem that she is a jade girl who is dissatisfied with her desires. But it can't be helped. I've never seen a man come into her room for tea. Drink for a quarter of an hour. The quilt warmed her up. If you don't come again, you will fall asleep. Xu Qian'an pretended to be profound and said things that were not nutritious. The night was long. Not in a hurry. The officer was thinking about something. He glanced at the enchantress. If the enemy does not move, I will not move. If the enemy dares to move, I will give him a knife. That's what I was thinking. Xu Qian'an suddenly felt dizzy. Mentally exhausted. It seems that I haven't slept for 3 days. The eyelids weigh as much as 1,000 pounds. He was poisoned in his heart. Xu Qian'an looked at the bright Orin sharply. He was found to be asleep. There was no movement. The maid, who was still low-browed and pleasing to the eye before, seemed to have changed into a different person. What is Su Gongzi waiting for? Xu Qian'an pretended to be panicked. Speak out and be tempted. Who are you and why are you poisoned? This official has no enmity or grudge against you. Poisoning watchmen. The great sin of raiding the house. The maid's brother laughed. Of course, I'm waiting for you. Xu Qian'an secretly breathed. But the qi in the dantian was as thick as honey. Cannot be transferred. The limbs are soft. Weak to damn it. Nicholas Song, that kid hurt me. Based on the trust in the yamen of the Gung people. He chose to stay. Don't miss this opportunity to capture the demon girl. And now it seems Nicholas Song must have been in some trouble. Otherwise, it's been so long. Both the teaching department and the yamen can make several trips. There is no reason to drag it out until now. The maid walked slowly. Take off a piece of clothing with every step. The night was long. The lady has already slept. Let the slave take care of Su Gongzi instead of her. Su's wife was relieved. This is not a good thing. Many banshees are good at hunting. Harvest men into slag. The fate of the dregs is usually death. when the demon girl was 3 feet closer to Xu Qian'an. Suddenly, there was a sharp light in her eyes. Precipitates all emotions. The black gold long knife is unsheathed. A thin line of knife light lit up in the room, then extinguished. Xu Qian'an did not look at the results. Burst out of the last remaining strength. Run wild. Hit your head against the window. It's just that Xu Qian's foot was tripped over something. He fell heavily to the ground. Xu Qian'an looked back. The maid has vanished. In its place is a paper figure cut in two. Suddenly, a wet tongue licked her face. The enchantress giggled. It's really vigorous. Smell you. I can't help myself. Xu Qian'an stiffened. For the first time, I developed a dislike for women. The power that just burst out. Half of it is potential stimulation. Half of it was chewing on a strong pill hidden under the tongue. Come up with surprises. Attack the unprepared and give the demon girl a knife. But Xu Qian'an underestimated the strength of the other party. What to do now? Shouting words. It will definitely be killed in the first place. Roll hard. After all, it is difficult for the gods to live. Rolling. Or pull a lump of fragrant gold carrots to disgust him. That's when it happened. His expression changed suddenly. Look to the side and say, who are you? A dark shadow appeared in the room at some point, with their backs to the two. You don't need to know who I am, because everyone who knows the name of the deity is already dead. A low roar came from the witch's mouth. Grinning at the man in white, he flicked decisively at the window, intended to flee. It just sounded with a bang. He crashed into the invisible masonry wall, bounced it back alive. The man in white shook his head. Sigh. How sad it is to say with pity. Then he snapped his fingers. The soles of the feet are spreading. Enveloped the enchantress. Zheng Wenyi stretched out the illusory chains that were not real enough. Wrap around the witch's wrists and ankles. Hold her in place. No matter how much she struggled, she couldn't break free. Xu Qian'an was afraid of this master, who was full of qualifications. Torture and kill the demon girl. So he hurriedly gave birth to stop it. The white-clothed master stood with his hands in his hand. You are Xu Qian'an. Xu Qian'an nodded. Confirmed below. The senior is a man in white, and said lightly. Si Tianjian Miriam Yang. You've probably heard of me. Xu Qi was relieved. Sorry, I haven't heard of it. But he's still very face-saving. I made a sudden look. It turned out to be Senior Yang. I have admired the daimyo for a long time. The man in white spoke in a happy tone. Sister Kaiwei told you. It's still Song Qing's paranoia. Su's wife Anshan said with a smile. It's all there. But my colleague informed me. The senior man in white nodded. It was he who notified him before the 2 sticks of incense. 4 days to see that there is a demon clan here. I've been outside the yard all along. Xu Qian'an opened his mouth. Confused. Then why didn't you strike earlier? At this time, Miriam Yang snorted. Make a look that you think is unfathomable. Said that the real hero always appears at the end. What do you think? Xu Qian'an wanted to scold his mother a little at the moment. I think you're a bit of a psychopath. However, Xu Qian'an still nodded with a smile. Miriam Yang was also satisfied. What do you want to ask? Just asked. Xu Qian'an let out a breath. Looked at the enchantress. He said in a deep voice, you are the remnant of the 10,000 demon kingdom. It's still a demon clan in the north. The enchantress sneered and did not speak. The illusory chains snapped tightly. Arcs of gas and electricity swam along the body of the demon girl. He screamed in pain. Miriam Yang proudly said that I created my own torture formation. He can slash the flesh and the spirit. Few people or demons can endure such pain. In the amber pupils of the enchantress. Extreme fear. 10,000 demon country. I'm a tiger girl of 10,000 demon country. Xu Qian'an asked again. Samboan was done by you. The enchantress nodded. There is no point in denying it at this point. Xu Qian'an asked, Hung Hui is also your person. The enchantress sighed slowly. After a long time, he nodded. Xu Qian'an said, "Then what is your purpose?" The enchantress said, "Blow up Sambo. Release what's inside." "What's in there?" "I don't know, I really don't know." Xu Qian continued to ask. "I have 3 more questions. First question, now that the seal has been released, why do you still instruct Heng Hui to make trouble? Killed Ping Yuan Bo and Yi Shi's military department Shang Shefu. Question 2, who are the people you're working with? The third question, why target me?" The enchantress hesitated. "I don't know about the first 2 questions. I'm lurking in the capital. Do what you are told. I don't know anything else. As for dealing with you, I received instructions not long ago. As long as the gong, Su Qianjin teaches the Fong division. Just find a way to take his life." Su Qian frowned and said so. "The demon clan hidden in the sect division is this demon girl. The order I received was to kill me, because I am infinitely close to the truth of the case. So the intention is to eradicate the threat from the source. Fortunately, the operation was not without its results at least. Heng Hui is indeed the breakthrough in this case." Su Qian said in a deep voice the last question. "Miss Mingyan is not an accomplice." The enchantress sneered. "I wanted to say yes at the time." Suddenly, the gas arc crackled and exploded. His face changed dramatically. Hurley shook his head and said that he didn't know anything. Su Qian laughed twice. "I'm done. Can this banshee be left to me as a meritorious service?" Miriam Yang nodded. "Okay. This enchantress is my merit. I took it away." Su Qian was a little speechless. "Aren't you a master?" "This answer is different from what I thought." Su Qian replied a little sluggishly. "In addition, is there still a demon clan lurking here?" Miriam Yang said in an arrogant tone. "The deity arrived at the Sword Mountain and the Sea of Fire. It will also become a paradise. It seems safe for the church now." Su Qian nodded reassuringly. "Although I think this guy has something wrong with his brain. But the strength is not compromised." Miriam Yang suddenly said that you bow your head and take 2 breaths. Su Qian did so blankly. After 2 breaths, he looked up. It was found that there was no figure of the man in white. Su Qian left Qingqi courtyard, dragged his tired body into the film and media brother, just entered the master bedroom. Then he saw a floating image of a peach with tears in his eyes. The orange sat on the edge of the bed, sideways. "Don't overdo it." Su Qian glanced at her, too lazy to explain. "Lift the quilt directly to sleep." She didn't want to stay in the Bluestone Temple anymore. "I can't go back in the middle of the night. You can only rest in Brother Ingmei." The next morning, Su Weifeng got up in good spirits. The pillow man is no longer there. There is a woman's fragrance on the back of the neck. Last night's demon girl was the remnant of the 10,000 demon kingdom. That is to say, this thing is related to. The northern demon clan has nothing to do with the suspicion of the king of Jinbei. It's almost very light, it's light. The goal of the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom is the seal or something else. Su Qian would think so. It is because if the target is a seal, the remnants of the demon clan should flee with the money now, instead of staying in the city and making waves. There is another possibility. The demon clan's goal is more than just seals. Rather, there is a bigger plan. Seals are simply a means to accomplish an objective. The context of Sambo's case is almost clear. The leading force behind the scenes is the 2nd and 5th boy of the imperial court. The 2nd is the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom. The goal is unknown. The seal is the severed hand of an unknown powerhouse. The factors and people involved in it, as well as the forces, respectively, 10,000 Demon Kingdom and Peace Yuanbua and the Ministry of War, Heavenly Sword and the Imperial Family, as well as the Lord of Bin Duong. There are also Heng Hui monks and Jin Wuxing to protect Zhou Qixiong. Now for the breakthrough. It is the strong man with the severed hand, the monk Heng Hui and the Lord of Pingyang. Just figure out the identity of the strong man with the severed hand. It can reverse the true purpose of the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom. And then, capture any of the county lords of Henghui and Pingyang. It can also reverse the inside story of the case. At this moment, the door of the boudoir was squeaked open. Fu Xiang led his personal maid in. Her jet-black hair was high. The plain white and beautiful face is slightly haggard, and the eyes are still a little red and swollen. Xu Qian'an exhaled slowly, pretending to be casual and laughing and getting angry. Fu Xiang smiled gently, and Su Gongzi didn't want to make fun of the slave family. The slave family is just a dusty woman. Where did the qualifications come from and the childishness of the child? Su Qian was a little speechless. Okay, Su Lang has become Su Gongzi. He said indifferently about preparing hot water. I'm going to bathe. Fuka smiled and nodded. Arrange for a maid to bathe him. I went out for a walk with my personal maid. Walk in the alley of the Jiaofang division. The maid said softly, Lady, you are to Su Gong. Isn't the sun too cold? Fu Xiang shook his head slightly. The voice was a little sad. You don't understand that I once begged her. Can you redeem me? She refused. The maid was silent for a moment. Explained to Su's wife that Su has no money. The lady's deed of sale is less than 3,000 or 4,000 taels of silver. Now I'm afraid it's going to have to be doubled. Fu Xiang's expression was a little gloomy. I've also saved a lot of money over the years. Actually, you can. He smiled wryly. I am no different from you in his heart. I didn't want to believe it before. And self-deception. But last night's events made me see myself clearly. It's just a falling flower intentionally. Flowing water is just a ruthless wishful thinking. Fu Xiang walked and walked. Unknowingly, I came to the outside of the Qingqi temple. A cacophony of sounds caught his attention. Two people wore gongs supported by watchmen. Lock up the bright lady and go out. Fu Xiang frowned and greeted the watchman. A few adults. Bright lady. What a crime he committed. Nicholas Song stopped. Said that the bright lady secretly colluded with the demon clan. Provide shelter and accommodation. Last night, Lord Su secretly investigated. Found out the enchantress disguised as his personal maid. The enchantress has been prostrate yet. Now I'm going to take him for questioning. Labor insurance beats your chest. You are wronged. How could a weak woman collude with the demon clan? You know I raised him. How much effort and money was spent? I'm going to Lu Bu to file a complaint. I'm going to ask the adults of Lu Bu to call the shots. Zhu Guang smiled and said in a deep voice, I suspect now that you're also a fellow demon clan. Lao Bao suddenly lost his voice. The desire to survive took a few steps back. Nicholas Song took a crisp bite at him. Then he left with someone. Fuka looked at their departing backs in a daze. Ming Yin colluded with the demon clan. Su Gongzi secretly investigated yesterday. He chose to stay overnight at Qingqi court last night. It's not that I like the new and hate the old. Rather, there is official business. But I'm throwing a lot of temper. He dragged last night. Coming back with a tired body. I'm seeing. I thought he was Yu Mingiko at the time. I blamed him. Give him back a white face this morning. Vent the resentment in your heart. But why didn't he explain? Yes, he can't explain. Because this is the official case of the Yamen. Confidentiality is required. And even so, I know that I am misunderstood. He didn't show the slightest bit of boredom. I bear it silently. Fu Xiang suddenly ran towards Wang Yingmei's little brother. Pushed the door into the bedroom door. Fu Xiang shouted Su Lang. But the room was empty. The man is gone. This moment, he suddenly felt it. I lost something precious. The heart is empty. The maid chased after her. I saw my own lady standing in despair. Fu Xiang said softly, I'm a little tired. Give me a hand. The maid helped him to the bed. Glanced at him. I sighed in my heart. Suddenly, he saw a pen, ink, paper, and inkstone on the table. Scorned the lady. Here's a poem. It may have been left by Su Gongzi. Fu Xiang suddenly came to life, running barefoot to the shore. Like snatching a treasure, he snatched it from the maid's hand. Take a closer look. Beauty-beaded blinds. Flat moth eyebrows. But see tear stains wet. I don't know who I hate. He watched. Tears snapped and fell. The tale is on paper. Fu Xiang held the paper in his heart. While crying, he said that I was going to find her. The maid was shocked. Hold the soft waist of the lady. You are the Oiran. It is the most famous Oiran of the church division. Word of this is getting out. How does a lady behave? The reputation that I had built up was gone. I've never heard of an Oiran like you. Fu Xiang, who couldn't do it, was furious and let me go. Xu Qian'an bought 6 large meat buns on the street. Sitting on horseback and gnawing, leisurely walked towards the yamen. Xiaofanxi's Oiran is good-looking. Each has its own merits. Wait for the funeral case to end. Go and talk to them one by one. Let's come out with a big phoenix in the future. Oiran is a poor straight man. The only problem is the lack of money. I only pick up 3,000 pieces of silver a day. And the value of the Oiran. Sleep at least 30 taels a night. Thanks to the 9 years of compulsory education. Those odes were not read in vain. I'm a traverser. Supporting others to be a literary superworker is all for the sake of mixing the world. I'm here for nothing. Speaking of which, I'm about to turn 20. Fortunately, my aunt is not my mother. Won't push me. I can make my own decisions about marriage. Kai Wei is a disciple of Jianjin. The backstage is too hard. He was like marrying half a princess. It's not good to go out and fool around in the future. Forget it. Don't be in a hurry to get married. A few more years. There are 24 Oiran in the workshop division. Come to think of it, Su Weifan smiled bitterly. I was thinking about the idiot. The disciples of the traitorous government may not look down on me. In a secluded courtyard. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Heng Hui, who was dressed in a black robe, walked out silently. Go straight to the well in the courtyard. He stared at the deep well for a few seconds. Wave his hand. The wellhead lit up with a faint gold. 10,000 words are broken and broken. After the seal is lifted, Heng Hui jumped in. The bottom of the dim well. The middle-aged monk closed his back against him. Meditate cross-legged. Heng Hui said in a hoarse voice, Senior brother, I was seriously injured. The severed hand is devoured. Heng Yuan opened his eyes. Concerned about Dao Heng Hui. Never too late to mend. Heng Hui shook his head, Senior brother. I entered Qinglong Temple when I was 6 years old. And they will follow you. You taught me to meditate. Teach me to recite the scriptures. Take care of my food, clothing, and daily life. Treat me like a brother and a father. Now I want to ask you for something. Heng Hui sighed, still nodded. Heng Hui looked up. Under the cloak was a pair of scarlet eyes without the whites of the eyes. He smiled hideously. I want to eat senior brother. Under the black robe, the hand stretched out spontaneously. The palm of the hand inspires the cyclone. Monk Heng Yuan flew uncontrollably. Throw yourself into a cyclone of death. His eyes widened in pain. The skin dries out quickly. Qi and blood flow. The decay of the face is visible to the naked eye. Heng Hui, who watched this scene, the cruel face was slightly moved. His bright red eyes were no longer cold and hard. Bang! Heng Yuan was thrown out, slammed into the neck wall. Heng Hui gritted his teeth and said that he was not allowed to kill him. You are not allowed to kill my brother. His face turned grim. Bewitching Dao Heng Yuan is a warrior monk. Vigorous blood and energy, just to make up for the injury. Don't you want revenge? Then the grim expression disappeared. Instead, there is a painful struggle. No, you can't kill him. He's my brother. Anyone in the world can be killed. Why can't you kill him? Anyone in the world can be killed. He was the only one who couldn't. He's my brother. Is the person I respect the most. What about Ben Duong? The main personality of the Heng Hui is suppressed. Ruthlessness gradually gained the upper hand. Heng Yuan's voice is tired and Heng Hui. Do you remember the first mantra that my brother taught you back then? Heng Hui paused for a meditation mantra. He sat down slowly. Put your hands together. Begin to chant in a low voice. It's been a long time. He gradually calmed down. The right arm is no longer agitated. Hung Hui's voice was hoarse. Don't you want to know what happened to me a year ago? I'll tell you right now. In the interrogation room, Xu Qian'an took a sip of tea, looking at the restless Oiran maid on the other side. What is your name? Mingyan obediently replied that his name was here. Xu Qian's face was serious. When he's with you, Mingyan said that it has been 3 or 4 years. I can't remember the exact time. He looked at Xu Qian in fear. How could this man's transformation be so great? Last night was still a gentleman's style. Xu Qian nodded, and it has been 3 or 4 years. Go back and have someone check it out. What other women entered the workshop during this time? She asked a few more questions. Xu Qian looked at Li Yuan, who was in charge of making the record. The latter nodded. Xu Qian suddenly smiled and said, "Thank you, Miss Mingyan, for your cooperation. You're good to go." Mingyan paused. Happiness comes too fast like a tornado. He couldn't believe it for a moment. Xu Qian got up and made a gesture of please. I'll send you back to the church division. Mingyan followed him out nervously. Walk all the way to the yamen. I saw the carriage parked outside. He was relieved. I believe that I will really be sent back to the church division, and not in the yamen. He suddenly regained his old bearing. Ying gave a salute and thanked Master Xu. Xu Qian stretched out his hand, pinched on the plump and full buttocks. Great grace is not grateful. You should express it in actual actions. Bright Oiran is a little shy. There was also some fear. Secretly glanced back at Xu Qian. This man turns his face faster than a woman. At this time, Xu Qian raised his eyebrows, watching the carriage fall in a deep thought. The carriage stopped outside the alley of Jiafangxi. The Oiran lady got out of the carriage. He said softly, "Lord Xu, I have time to drink tea at King Qian. Drop a polite word." He immediately turned away. The pace is fast. He was a little afraid of Xu Qian. Of course, it's not because of Xu Qian's 24K pure gold-like hardness. Nothing happened in the carriage. Xu Qian returned to Yamen in a carriage. Convene a meeting of the core members of the team. Xu Qian said, I already know what happened to Fong Si last night. Li Yuchen and the others nodded. I've heard Nicholas Song say it. Also knew that it was Si Tianjin's people who made the move in the end. The crisis was resolved. As for why Nicholas Song didn't report to the Yamen, they tacitly didn't ask. Because last night was very unlucky. The person holding the hand was Zhu Jin. Luo repeatedly pursed his red and glamorous little mouth. How do adults know that it's called Fong Si? Buried with demons. Xu Qian said solemnly during a night watch. I've looked at the workshop division. I found out that there was a demonic aura there. Speaking of which, Xu Qian hurriedly changed the topic. Okay, I have something to explain. Go for the head. You take someone to look up the people on the list. They have a close relationship with the demon girl. Also, check out how I joined the Department of Education 4 years ago. Or a woman who has made a name for herself. Lu Zhutu, you led people to search for Hung Hui door to door. Remember to be careful. Suddenly, a feeling of palpitations came. Xu Qian knew that it was heaven and earth that would come with news. He immediately left the side hall. Entered the latrine. Number 5 said that I was here to pay off the number 3 debt. We're done exploring. I discovered a big secret. Xu Qian replied. What a secret? Number 5 did not say it directly. Instead, he spoke first for revenge. What about you? Have you decided that you owe me a reward? Immediately, number 1, 2, and 4 all said that there was no problem. After everyone has taken a stand, biography number 5 said, the clansmen of the 7 tribes worked together. After experiencing many difficulties and near-death exploration, finally arrived in Geo. Number 2 is a little upset. Don't talk too much nonsense. Straight to the point. Number 5 is no longer sold. We found a statue of a Confucian saint in the abyss. He was staring. The members of the Abyss Heaven and Earth Society were surprised at first. Then I thought of number 3. As an outstanding student of Yunlu Academy, he might know something, but probably won't tell them. And the debt owed to him has not been paid. Inexplicably in debt. Number 5 continued. Number 3, you are a student of Yunlu Academy. You know something, right? Xu Qian'an was a little speechless. I don't know. I was surprised too. Xu Qian'an did not answer directly. What else is there in the auspicious garden besides the sculpture of the saint? Other than that, describe in detail what the sculpture of the saint looks like. Number 5 said, in addition to goo gods and various goo insects in the auspicious garden, there are only sculptures of saints. By the way, the eyebrows of the saint's sculpture cracked. The elders in the group seemed worried. Number 2's heart moved. You say, will the sculpture of the saint be suppressing the ancient gods? Otherwise, the good end of the set circle. Why are there saint sculptures? Number 4 agrees. This possibility cannot be ruled out. Statues and bronze sculptures, in bronze and other mediums as ceiling formations, is extremely common. In ancient times, the emperor cast 9 tripods. Suppression of the mountains and rivers of Kyushu. Condensing the charm of the human race is the best example. Number 1 said, the eyebrows of the saint's sculpture cracked. Does it mean that the seal is unstable? So the ancient gods are initially revived. Number 4 said, there is a possibility. The topic passed quickly. After all, the rank of the ancient gods and the southern frontier. It's too far away from everyone. Xu Qian'an entered information number 1. You haven't even asked me about the Sambo case lately. Do you have any clues about the ancient books? Reply number 1. There are no clues. Xu Qian'an was a little surprised. The situation on number 1 is a bit abnormal. I was obviously very concerned about the Sambo case before, but so many days have passed. He didn't even ask me about the progress of the case. Xu Qian'an entered the information number 2. Is there a clue to Zhou Qisheng's whereabouts? Number 2 reply no. I'll keep an eye on it for you. Xu Qian'an was disappointed, and I took it for granted. The sea of people is vast. It's not that easy to find. Suddenly, Jean Liandao Chong bubbled number 3. Come out and see me. Xu Qian'an was stunned for a moment. Then comprehend the jade trail. Leave the latrine. Walked quickly to the door of the yamen. I saw an orange cat standing on the wall. The tail is raised high, quietly looking at the watchman. The entrance of the yamen. The orange cat said in a deep voice, I found number 6. Xu Qian'an almost blurted out, I really found it. Orange cat said not so long ago. I sensed the fragment of the 6th handing book. But on my way to you, the connection between the fragments of the handing book is broken. Xu Qian'an's face changed slightly. The number 6 orange cat shook his head. I don't know the specifics. The previous speculation was correct. He was indeed sealed. It should have been some reason just now. The seal is broken. Xu Qian'an was taken aback. Why was the seal suddenly lifted? There are 2 possibilities. One is that the 6th was transferred. The second is that there is no orange on the 6th. The cat urged Dao to inform Wei Yuan quickly. Xu Qian'an nodded, immediately turned around, and went to the instrument building. Wait for his back to disappear. The orange cat snorted slightly. I thought about what Luo Yuheng was thinking. There was no shot from beginning to end. With his cultivation and age, the end should not have come yet. There's no reason not to make a move. He wants to be a national teacher, and unwilling to rest with the emperor. I don't know what he's up to. Just thinking about it, Daoist Jin Lian heard the sound of a cat. I just wanted to tilt my head to look. I saw a big gray cat coming over, then lay on top of him. Daoist Jin Lian reacted immediately. Make somebody's blood boil. Turned around and gave the big gray cat a set of king 8 punches. Xu Qian'an is running. Rushing into the 7th floor. Come to the 7th floor. I saw Deputy Wei Yuan standing in the observation hall. Wei Yuan took the initiative to speak. "What's the matter?" Xu Qian'an got straight to the point. "No superfluous nonsense. Wei Gong may have news of the Hung Hui, the Golden Lotus Dao leader of the Heaven and Earth Society, through the induction between the pieces of the hand." Finally, the position of number 6 was locked not long ago. Taihui number 6 is Hung Hui's senior brother, the monk of Qinglong Temple. The law number is Hing Yuan. He disappeared for no apparent reason while investigating the whereabouts of his younger brother Hung Hui. I doubt it. He was sealed by Hung Hui or the Demon Clan. Wei Yuan turned around and returned to the tea room. "Pick up a pen and write on the shore." After stamping the jade seal, it was handed to Xu Qian. Said, "You take my order and go to Yangyan. Let him gather all the golden gongs. Assemble in the front yard of the yamen within a quarter of an hour. You don't have to worry about the rest." Xu Qian said in a low voice. "The Golden Lotus Daoist is just outside the yamen. He needs to lead the way." Wei Yuan defended. I knew Xu Qian hesitated. "There's one more problem. The balance will be in the inner city. In the event of a battle, ordinary people will inevitably suffer from death and injury. It can disperse the surrounding people in a large area. It will definitely be noticed by the other party. Although the formation of the Four Heavens sword is mysterious, but it is not possible to arrange it in advance. It is equivalent to useless wisdom." Abyss stared at him. "As a reminder, this is inevitable. That's what I've always wanted to tell you. I also abhor beings who have contempt for human life. But sometimes we have to know how to make trade-offs. Hung Hui is concerned with the Sambo case. It's about seals. It's about the conspiracy of the Demon Clan. As long as there is a chance, capture or kill at any cost. Don't be out of the mood for the moment. Cancel the review. That would only lead to more serious consequences. I have read the files of the Ping Yuan Bo Men murder case. Seals like to devour blood to strengthen themselves. The constant order has not done any killing now, but there's no guarantee that he'll be quiet and dormant forever. With the strength of the seal, once unscrupulously devouring the qi and blood of ordinary people, that would cause more serious casualties. Xu Qian actually understands this truth. Wei Yuan was admonishing himself. Don't make the same mistakes as before. He didn't say anything on the surface, but he didn't agree with his own approach. He's a schemer, and I'm a police officer, although I am keen to appease the big sisters of the church division. Of course it's not scum. I just want to give them a home. Thoughts flickered. Xu Qian hugged his fist to take the test. Xu Qian led Uncle Ling to the Divine Spear Hall. I saw this golden gong with facial paralysis. Yang Yin looked at Uncle Ling's sculpted stiff face. There was a hint of solemnity. What happened? Why did the father-in-law gather all the golden gongs? Xu Qian said, "The hiding place of the suspected Hung Hui monk has been discovered." Yang Yan's eyes suddenly sharpened. He stood up and held out his hand. The silver spear on the wooden frame flew into his hand. Xu Qian asked curiously, "There is no golden gong to sit in the yamen. Will the safety of Duke Wei be threatened?" Yang Yin shook his head. "Don't know, but don't worry about anything. Nobody knows. How much defense power is there around the stepfather? How powerful?" Xu Qian gasped. "Security forces are kept secret. The virtual and the real are catched. Inscrutable. Wei Yuan is really a scheming old conspirator. A love affair that is destined not to be recognized by the world. How wonderful it was to start. How cruel the ending will be. Do you still believe in love?" Hung Hui was sent to Qinglong Temple by his parents at the age of 6. He was a child with an aura in his eyes. At a glance, he was photographed by the abbot Panshu monk. Accepted as an apprentice, Hung Hui's enlightenment was completed in the junior brother Hing Yuan. This burly brother with a bitter appearance and a deep hatred. Teach him to read and write. Teach meditation and chanting. At the same time, it also taught him the principles of being a human being. He had a fatherly love for him. Years have passed in the blink of an eye. A wise little monk. He has grown into a handsome monk with clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes. He thought he would be like Master and his brother. The ancient Buddha green lantern passed through the year. Until one day, he met a girl. It was a sunny spring. He washed his clothes in the stream. I saw a handkerchief coming down the stream. He subconsciously scooped it up. Then came the sound of the master, who was as crisp as a yellow oriole. "That's my handkerchief. Can you give it back to me?" Peng Hui raised her gaze. I saw the bluestone side upstream. There stood a slim woman. She wears a long brown dress, combing the long hair of a girl who has not left the cabinet. Plain face to the sky, pretty face in the sun, have a pair of smiling eyes. The benefactor is a pilgrim in the temple. Why do I say not a pilgrim? Aren't you going to return my handkerchief? No, it isn't. The little monk just felt that the female benefactor was born. All you know every day is to bow your head and do things and chant sutras. There are pilgrims in the eyes. How does the female benefactor know? Because I've been following you for a long time. A bright spring afternoon. The babbling stream flows. It was the first time they had been released from prison. The acquaintance of the two knew each other. It's a natural process. When Heng Hui meditates, the girl was by her side. Look at the forbidden books in his private collection to pass the time. Or drag your cheeks and look at Heng Huizhuan. Note's face was in a daze. Occasionally, it will be teased with a dog's tail grass. Let it not be able to concentrate on meditation. This annoyed monk June. You do it again. The little monk went into retreat. It always sticks out the tip of its tongue. No sincere apologies. Sometimes we go on mountain tours together. The scenery of Baifeng Mountain is beautiful. When spring comes, the mountains are full of flowers. It smiles in the bushes. I couldn't tell if the flowers were beautiful or the people were more beautiful. Gradually, rumors about the two of them. It is spread among the monks of Qinglong Temple. He said that his 6 roots were not purified. Broken color ring. It's a Yin monk. The master pan tree in front of the statue of the Buddha. I asked him 3 questions if he was still devout to the Buddha, whether or not he was interested in the woman. Do you want to be vulgar? He said firmly, I am still devout to the Buddha. It's not good for women. May you always be with the Buddha. Don't return the vulgar to this. The abbot had only one request, not to speak to him again. As for why, I will never see him again. Don't let him near death. I only found out later. The abbot didn't want to. It's impossible to do it, because he is the daughter of the Jade King, the Lord of Pingyang. Since that date, Heng Hui really ignored him. When he came, he closed his eyes and meditated, indifferent to his teasing or pranks. He came every day with great anticipation, disappointed and lonely to leave. Monk, is this flower good-looking? He's a good match for me. Monk, it's good for me to stroke the piano for you, specially brought from home. Monk, I was dizzy, feeling unwell. Don't you care about me? Monk, do you have to stuff yourself into solitude? Then he finally stopped coming. I haven't set foot in Qinglong Temple for a month. Completely withdraw from his life, as if it never existed. I can continue to accompany the Buddha. No one bothered anymore. He breathed a sigh of relief. I felt that it was my sincerity that moved the Buddha. Until one day, here he is again, the appearance of a lost soul. His face was thinned. His face was even more haggard to the extreme. Monk, I'm getting married. I don't know why the Buddha beads are scattered all over the place. At that time, the Jade King was at a critical moment, served as the secretary of the military department, with the support of the nobles. It is expected to enter the cabinet. For the declining Xuangue group, the rise of the Jade King gives them hope. Carrying him on, the Jade King on the cusp ordered a family affair for the Lord of Pingyang. It is to find a good home for his daughter, also trying to get more support through marriage. Monk, would you like to elope with me? Heng Hui agreed without hesitation. He finally saw his heart clearly. Choose to face your true self. This side of the yamen of the watchman. The golden gong that sat in the hall was summoned. Meet in the front yard of the yamen. Xu Qian'an ran out of the door of the guardia. Look left and right. Not far away, I saw an orange cat by a stall selling wontons. Xu Qian'an beckoned to the golden lotus Daoist. Come here, come here. But the orange cat ignored him. He looked at the noodles with a blank eye. Smell the fragrance wafting from inside. Xu Qian'an was at a loss. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice behind me. I am here. Xu Qian'an was surprised. Why did you change a cat? The big gray cat reluctantly said that it was a female cat. Speaking of which, Daoist Jin Lian seemed reluctant to say any more. Divert the topic. What is Wei Yuan's attitude? Xu Qian'an said, Duke Wei is willing to cooperate with you. The big gray cat nodded Wei Gong. Your respect for Wei Qingyi. It's far more profound than Emperor Yuan Jing. Xu Wan'an whispered as she walked for now. I didn't see him on him. Repulsive flaws and character. Number 6 temporarily lives in the outer city. A health hall in the east of the city. It was in tatters. The court was in arrears of money. The old people and children in the courtyard are almost out of the pot. I revealed the information of the 6th to Wei Gong. He didn't move number 6. Instead, he made up the donation. But Yangshengtang is not an area under the jurisdiction of the watchman. Daoist Jin Lian said in a tone that seemed to be smiling rather than smiling. You are indeed leaking the heaven and earth society to him. Insider information. Xu Qian's expression was the same. There is a kind of shame when the 2 or 5 boys were caught red-handed by the boss. But he quickly reverted to coercion. See me to win the trust of Wei Gong. It's to get more information. Enrich the intelligence system of our heaven and earth society. The starting point is good. Why didn't the Taoists speak? Soon they came. The golden lotus Tao elder inducted. Hand out the breath of the shards. The little courtyard. The figure of 10 golden gongs. They appear in different directions in the courtyard. Poisoning may flee in the direction. The gongs are enclosed in an outer circle. Xu Qi waited quietly for a moment. It was found that the golden gongs did not move. He jumped on the roof of a house next door. From this vantage point, you can see the inside of the courtyard. There were 2 monks sitting in the courtyard. One man clasped his hands together. Chant in a low voice. One was dressed in a black robe. Hang your head. It is Hung Hui and Heng Yuan brothers. Xu Qian'an was puzzled for a while. It seems to be something that happened. At this moment, the golden gongs burst in through the gate. Heng Yuan's voice is hollow. No joy or sorrow. But there was great sorrow and pain. You're a step too late. He has gone to bliss. At this time, Hung Hui's face was pale. Keep your eyes closed. There was no sound. This result caught Xu Qian'an off guard. When he died, he subconsciously felt that it was a conspiracy. It's an illusion that it's stalling for time. Yang Yin snorted coldly. Picked off Hung Hui's right arm with the tip of the gun. The magic hand that found him was gone. Heng Yuan recited a Dharma number in a low voice. Between me and death. He chose the latter. Resurrected by the demon hand. Xu Qian's pupil shrank, feeling like you're no longer safe around you. There are many dangers. Monk Heng Yuan said in a deep voice. He has left. I'm staying here, waiting for you. Xu Qian'an was a little puzzled. Number 6 I'm pretty sure will come. By the way, the golden lotus Tao elder can sense the handing out fragments. So he's waiting. Heng Yuan continued. He did not give up on revenge. Just gave me the burden. I'd like to tell you a story. A story that happened a year ago. Xu Qian's mood turned from lost to excited. The story of a year ago. No doubt. Heng Yuan's so-called story. Most of it is the story of Hung He and the Lord of Bin Duong. What happened to the 2 of them is the key to solving the Sambo case. Until now, the demon clan did not show up. There is only one constant club that makes waves with a trench coat dance. This has to be contemplative. What do the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom want to do? There has only been one case of sabotage so far. Uncle Pingyuan destroyed the door. Although the impact is great, but the substantial damage is not significant. In Henghui, it is completely possible to kill all sides in a desperate manner. Brought heavy casualties to the capital. But he didn't. If the target is only seals, that Henghui should have left the capital a long time ago. The case of the monk Henghui and the Lord of Bin Duong. At this point, it has taken over. Got over the Sambo case. Always feel the people behind it. In deliberately exposing Henghui to the sun. Heng Yuan's eyes seem to have dark clouds condensed. Heng Hao is indeed dead. Died a year ago. It was only the walking dead who survived. He was liberated. This is not some conspiracy. Monk, would you like to elope with me? This time, Henghui agreed without hesitation. He finally saw his inner choice. Face your true self. They began to plot an elopement. The Lord of Bin Duong is accompanied by guards when he enters and leaves. He was missing for more than half an hour. The guards will search the mountain. Soon after, the news will be transmitted back to Prince Yu's mansion. So want to elope successfully. They needed a magic weapon that could shield their breath, to hide from the search of the heavenly warlock. At last, they also need a new shield to be able to prepare them with, and a channel to help them leave the borders of the capital. For this reason, the Lord of Bin Duong found a trustworthy friend. Hopefully, he can help himself. Xu Qian'an hit. Broke the story of Heng Yuan. It's Ping Yuan's uncle's son-in-law. That friend is Ping Yuan's uncle's sister-in-law. All of a sudden, Uncle Ping Yuan has a Yazzie organization under his hands. He is best at identity fraud and smuggling. The county lord of Pingyang did not know the existence of the Yazzie organization, but the two are still close to each other. Know some of the means of Pingyuan Bofu. It also makes sense. The Jade King once said, Uncle Pingyuan, and Wen Chen frowned. It is gradually distancing itself from Xuangui group. Pingyuan would definitely has a motive to assassinate Pingyang. This also led to the later Pingyuan Bofu extermination case. I just don't know. What role does the military department Shoshu play in it? Su Qian looked at number 6 Heng Yuan. That's because you know. They have had contact with tooth tissue. Did they decide that they had been abducted? Heng Yuan nodded slightly. Yes, the simple-minded Lord of Bin Duong. I don't know the complexity of the situation in the court. I don't understand the viciousness of people's hearts. A girl who has not been deeply involved in the world. A monk chanting sutras and reciting Buddha. From the moment they decided to elope, the tragic end was already predestined. At that time, Uncle Pingyuan, it has long been inseparable from Xuangui group. He learned about it through his son, immediately despised. Zhang Feng, the squire of the military department, discussed with son Mingzhong, who was a servant of the household department. It was decided to send the Lord of Bin Duong out of the capital, thus striking at the Jade King's strategy. Jiang Luzhongchen said, "Where is the county lord of Pingyang now?" Heng Yuan didn't seem to hear it. Go on. The human heart is like a snake and scorpion. After sending people out of the capital, Uncle Ping Yuan's sister-in-law, together with son Mingzhong and Zhang Feng, the squire of the military department, the son-in-law of the two, wants to commit violence against the Lord of Bin Duong on the way. The two resisted desperately. The last person was killed. One person committed suicide by swallowing the difference. In order to cover up the crime, they will Henghui and the corpse of the county lord of Pingyang, buried in a barren mountain, together with the inner parts to shield the breath of the magic weapon. Also buried together. The outside world only knows that the county lord of Bin Duong disappeared for no reason. Even if you find out the Qinglong temple, we'll only think that the two eloped. Who would have thought? They died 1 year ago. Jean Luo's face was full of shock. The Lord of Bin Duong is dead. The Lord of Pingyang is the concubine of the Jade King, the niece of Emperor Yuan Jing. Kill the county lord. The great sin of killing the 3 tribes. Enro said. Now that Hung Hui is dead, why is it here a year later? This is also the doubt in the hearts of everyone. A man dies like a lamp goes out. It is impossible to be resurrected. Heng Yuan said something that everyone couldn't understand. He's dead. He died 1 year ago. It was used by a secret method to seal the original god in the flesh. Became a sentient walking corpse. Throughout the year, sustaining him is revenge. It is the blood feud of the Lord of Pingyang. If you don't believe, bring it back to the yamen and let the 5 seats be inspected. Ajin Luoji asked, who saved him? Heng Yuan shook his head. At this time, Xu Qian'an ordered the surrounding 5 seats. Return Heng Hui's body to the yamen. The 5 seats answered. Heng Hui's body was carefully placed on a stretcher. Heng Yuan couldn't help but take a look. This is like a younger brother and a son. After all, he left himself. Xu Qian'an asked where the body of the county lord of Pingyang was. Take us there. Several golden gongs pressed Heng Yuan to leave the small courtyard. He was given a horse. The group went out of the city in a mighty way. Xu Qian'an rode on horseback. The mood is a little heavy. That's Heng Yuan. Is there a possibility of being taken away? Or be controlled? The gray cat lying on his shoulder said lazily. It's Heng Yuan, that's right. I can't forget, though. But it also has its own means of distinguishing the real from the fake. Xu Qian'an didn't believe it. Is Heng Hui really dead? The gray cat whispered. His life or death is not the key to the case. He is a puppet himself. The monster is gone. For those behind the scenes, it doesn't matter whether he lives or dies anymore. You should feel. I'm glad that the case is solved more easily than you think. Xu Qian's brows furrowed. He couldn't be happier. Heng Hui and the county lord of Pingyang are both poor people. There is something wrong with Heng Hui's case. It's like someone behind the scenes deliberately pushed to the front of the stage. A barren mountain somewhere at the junction of Taikang County and Changle County. Heng Yuan is trekking on the side, while looking forward to it. It's like looking for something. The process is inefficient and slow. He told the Golden Causeway. Heng Hui only told him the approximate direction. Tell him about the Lord of Bin Duong. It was buried at the root of an old locust tree hugged by 3 people. Half an hour later, they found the old locust tree. Su's wife dug it out in a deep voice. Wu Zong's Wenyin began to dig hard. That's it, the bones of the Lord of Pingyang. Little by little, it is exposed to the eyes of everyone. It's been more than 1 year. He finally regained his chances of seeing the light of day. Between the larynx and the chest and abdomen of the bones, a dull golden hairpin was found. As Heng Yuan said, he killed himself. Heng Yuan couldn't bear to look at it again, reciting the Buddha's name in a low voice in pain. Jiang Lizhong frowned. There is nothing else that cannot be proven. This corpse must be the county lord of Pingyang. Xu Qian'an said that this is normal. The lord of Pingyang eloped with the king of Qin. Xiao Zhuang is definitely needed. You won't bring valuables on your body to attract the attention of others. Let's practice the bones first. Bring it back to the yamen. Then send someone to inform Yuqing. The Jade King of the royal mansion may recognize this golden hairpin. Practice the bones. The crowd walked out of the mountain. Jiang Luzhong patted Xu Qian's shoulder and did a good job. Yang Yin, who doesn't like to talk, sweats his hands slightly. Said for the first time that you are guarding the palace in this case. Even if the Sambo case was not found out in the end, Your Majesty will most likely forgive you from your sins. Xu Qian'an was about to speak. It felt like a knife had been slashed across the back. He didn't have to look back. Also knew that Rueli's sight came from Zhu Jinluo. The deceased will always meet. The cause of death was a sharp blade piercing the heart. Experience is the post-mortem of old wounds. As a result, the flesh and viscera were black and purple. There are bones walking between the flesh and blood. Keep his flesh from decaying. The Walking Dead has been dead for more than a year. The other deceased is nameless. The corpse was 5 feet 4 inches tall. Female bones are well proportioned. No fractures and no signs of toxicity. The limb bones are well proportioned. Poor work. Xu Qian'an in the Yamen read the autopsy report. For the time being, the Bin Duong County case is preliminarily concluded. Follow-up investigation estimated that I could not intervene. This involves the murder of a county lord. It's not something like me can participate in, but the Sambo case remains unresolved. I don't know what I did in the Bin Duong County case. Can you offset my sins? If not, Lao Tzu is the uncle of Emperor Yuan Jing. I was slandering in my heart. A clerk stood at the door and said to Lord Wei, "King Yu is here." The two white-sided, white-clothed eunuchs drank their last sip of tea. He put the cup down, sighed. The prefectural council went to the prefectural council. The coroner's room is located in the hall. The crowd followed. Outside the autopsy room, the Qingluo did not go in. Instead, it split on both sides of the doorway, only for Yuan to enter alone. The Jade King is here. The sick man came with a blank face. There was no expression on his face, but it seems to gather all the expressions. His steps were not hurried, but it was as if there was an evil ghost chasing after him. When I walked outside the door of the morgue room, he paused for a few seconds. A look of struggle flashed across his face. After a moment, his expression was still painful. "Raise your leg over the threshold." The coroner's room is very well lit. Bright sunlight shines through the lattice windows, leaves an even spot of light on the ground. The Jade King saw it at a glance. Bones on a plank bed. At this moment, he felt the urge to flee from this place. But as a father's obsession, let him walk slowly. Wei Yuan took out Jinghai, whispered that this was found from him. He also used it to kill himself? Let's see if it's true. Knowing the Jade King's gaze, he froze him. S expression froze. It looks like a weathered sculpture. His fists clenched instantly. The nails almost got into the flesh. But this pain is not worth 1/10,000 of the heart. King Yu's pupils were instantly bloodshot. He asked hoarsely who did it. "It's been a long, long time." King Yu asked in a hoarse voice who did it. Wei Yuan stared at him. Deep eyes. It contains the vicissitudes of time. Only 3 people were found: Ping Yuanbua and Zhang Feng, the secretary of the military department, and the household governor in the matter. The trio's original plan was to trick him out of the capital. It's just that their son-in-law is interested in it. Didn't think about it at all. To let the county lord who broke away from the cause of the Yuan mansion go back alive again. King Yu's voice was terrifyingly calm. He was insulted. Wei Yuan shook his head. He killed himself. But we still can't be sure that he's the lord of the county. A golden hairpin doesn't mean anything. I think you know what to do. The Jade King left. Except for the glance when he stepped into the swallow corpse room. He never looked at the bones again. Not once. It seemed like something horrible was there. I don't know if it's an illusion. Look at his departing back. Xu Qian'an felt that the Jade King had aged a lot in an instant. There is a kind of desolation in the back. On this day, the Jade King entered the palace with a blood book in his hand. It wasn't long before it passed. Xu Qian'an was summoned by the eldest princess. Entering the palace, Xu Qian'an stood outside the pavilion. Reporting to the fist, Du Humble Post has seen several highnesses. Princess Linen shouted happily to the dog minion. "Come in and sit." Xu Qian'an was a little dazed. "When did the dog slave become my nickname?" Princess Huiqing's voice was soft, and she didn't need to see outside. "Give it to Lord Xu." Today, the Jade King entered the palace with a blood book. After being summoned by the emperor, it never came out. This palace remembers that you are investigating the case of the county lord of Pingyang. Is there progress? Xu Qian'an knew that he had been summoned to the palace for this purpose. The lord of Bin Duong is their cousin, growing up together since childhood. Very emotional. Xu Qian'an took a deep breath. Begin to tell the story. It's a simple and unpretentious love story. But he was not destined to be ordinary. Because of the heroine in the story, He is a noble county lord. She shouldn't have fallen in love with a monk. But the taste of love is so wonderful.